The March 10th, 2026 work session of the Anne Arundel County Council is called to order. Please ensure all electronic devices are in silent mode. Do any of my colleagues have any questions before we begin? Okay. We would like to welcome County Executive Stuart Pittman and his team to come on up. Thank you. This morning we have County Executive Stuart Pittman, Karen Henry, the Director of Department of Public Works, Chief Administrative Officer Christine Anderson, and County Attorney Greg Swain. Thank you, Mr. Pittman.
Thank you for inviting me down. It's the first time in almost 8 years that I've been invited to one of these sessions, so appreciate that. I've got with me here Karen Henry, Department of Public Works, you all know, and Christine Anderson, our Chief Administrative Officer, and Greg Swain, our County Attorney, to help with answering questions and talking about this moratorium. So the first thing I want to say is that while this moratorium was necessary, it's not something that we wanted, and it's something that I have no intention of allowing to stand one day longer than is absolutely necessary. It was Monday last week when the announcement went out. Public Works had been working with their peers in other counties to try to prevent this from happening. I think all of you know that it came about. Let me back up and say that the area we're talking about, for anybody who's listening, is north and west and a little bit south of BWI Airport. It's the northern part of the county, and it is a growth area for the state and the county. It is an economic driver for the state and the county. And while there are some folks who hear the word development and they say, great, a moratorium, we got too much growth going on in our county. I am not one of those people, and I don't believe anybody on this council is either, particularly in this area for what we know are child care centers, housing, transit-oriented development of housing near the airport, commercial development that's going to create jobs, and obviously it helps with the tax base for both the county and the state. There are a lot of folks in the chambers today who have projects in the pipeline, and the projects that we know about that are potentially affected by this moratorium are very important to me and also to the residents of the region who did a stakeholder advisory committee did a region plan that said they wanted this kind of development. So it came about because we had been calculating what we thought was the capacity to hook folks up to the wastewater system based on average daily flow. We're part of a consortium with Howard, Baltimore County, and Baltimore City that all flows into the Patapsco wastewater treatment facility. And it is under a consent order by the EPA that is overseen by MDE, the Maryland Department of the Environment, that works to prevent overflow and leakage and environmental protection. We were under the understanding that, like the rest of our wastewater treatment facilities and the way it's been done for decades, that we had about double the capacity that they're now telling us that we have. So we were always going under the assumption for years, and all of us were, that we could send 10.9 million gallons a day to this system, and now that is down to 4.3 million gallons a day. You can correct me on all this if I get it wrong. That's pretty drastic, and we're talking about future flow. So if that were to stand, we would have to divert the flow to wastewater treatment facilities that we own, that we run to the south. Patapsco is in Baltimore City. That takes time to build out the pump stations and the pipes to get the flow down there. 5 years is sort of an estimate that has been shared with us. That's not good enough. The solution, in my view, comes at a higher level than the folks who have been negotiating and trying to prevent this. This has been done at the DPW level with their peers in the other counties. They they didn't get what they asked for. They didn't get to continue using the average daily flow. So I've been in contact with the governor. I've been in contact with the secretaries of the environment, of commerce, of housing community development, and with my peers in all of those jurisdictions. And they have, particularly the governor, has said, we want to help, we want to fix this. Secretary of the Environment understands the importance of the economic growth in this area. So I am very optimistic that negotiations will get us there. Some of those negotiations might be sensitive. Some of it is potentially asking our neighbors to lend us some of their future capacity that they are not likely to need in the next 5 years while we build out what we need to divert flow. Some of it might have to do with the consent order and getting a decision that it's okay to use the average daily flow calculation. So there is a list that you've seen of about 10 things that we can do, and we have a moratorium mitigation strategy work group that is going to be convening of county folks, some of the smartest and most creative people, but the people who work in the agencies that know how to implement some of these bullet points that we've sent out. And those are much more technical. We're talking about reducing the inflow. There's a lot of water that goes into the wastewater treatment facility when it rains that that doesn't need to be treated, but it's inflow. We've addressed that, I think, way better than most counties have, but we're going to continue to do that kind of work. Looking at some of the allocations that have already been granted for development that may not actually be taking place for the next 5 years, and trying to reallocate some of that. And talking to BWI about some of their capacity that may be able to be borrowed for future. But basically, we need the authority to be able to say yes to the requests for capacity from the developments that are in the pipeline. And there are specific ones that DPW has that have already been approved, and then there's some that they know are coming that unless this is lifted, they won't be approved. And then I think there's another set of projects that we don't even know about that folks are lining up financing. So what really makes me have a sense of urgency about this is I've run businesses, I've run organizations all my life, and I know that you only get things done when you plan for them and when you get financing for them. And so there are projects where the banks, the financing, reads the newspaper and they see moratorium and they say they're not going to be able to get their allocation for their wastewater, and then they go make other plans or they pull out. So the urgency on this is 5-alarm fire. We have to move quickly, and we are moving quickly, and it has been taking up a big chunk of my time in the recent days, and I know everybody at this table has been working on this and will continue to do that. So it's not often that I'm in the council chambers with a group of real estate development folks here who've all mobilized where I agree 100% with them, but I do, and I will be fighting to get this done as quickly as possible because it's in the public interest. And I can pass it on, I guess, to Christine Anderson next with some more detail. It'll probably get more technical as we go down the line.
Thank you. Ms. Anderson?
Thanks. I was working against you, Kaylee. Thank you. Hi, thank you again for the opportunity, Madam Chair and members of the Council. I'm Christine Anderson. I am the Chief Administrative Officer for the county. We understand that as the county executive has laid out, there are concerns on many levels, and we are prepared to answer your questions today. I want to assure the council and anyone negatively impacted by the pause in issuing new permits or allocations that we don't want to be in this position. You heard the county executive say that himself just a minute ago. We also cannot knowingly send more flow to pump stations and to plants than they're designed to handle. So this is just risking an environmental overflow, but we also understand the economic impact of this. As the county executive said, we have a group together of professional staff that are looking into any and all options to reduce the time of the moratorium. I will say that I regret not pausing a day to make sure we had communications in place with everyone, including the development community. We felt the sense of urgency that we were getting questions about why haven't you allocated, and it doesn't matter. We should have paused a day or two to make sure that everybody understood what we were doing and why we were doing it. But that doesn't mean, just because we issued the moratorium, it doesn't mean that we weren't looking at options to mitigate it before and we've stopped now. We are continuing to look for options, and we have several at our disposal that we are hoping bear out, at least in part, to be able to allow some allocations to be able to proceed. But I also want to say, please don't mistake our calm or our general demeanor. We're professionals. We are not prone to panic. We deal with serious issues like this every day that impact residents. We de-escalate, we manage, we mitigate, but we're not overwhelmed. We will be able to address this issue. I will now actually turn it over to Ms. Henry, our Director of Public Works, and she has far more detail to offer than I can offer.
Thank you. I'm Karen Henry. I'm the Director of the Department of Public Works, and I just want to start off my presentation by saying this stinks. It's not where we wanted to be. It's not what we had hoped to be the outcome to lead to a moratorium, but it is where we are, and our focus is going to be on what the solutions are to get out of the moratorium. But I want to give you some background. First of all, just about the Anne Arundel County sewer system as a whole. We have 7 wastewater treatment plants. We treat 31.5 million gallons every day. It's a system of pumping stations and sewer mains that go through the county and get to treatment plants, treated, and then discharged into our waterways. If I can point you to this green area at the top, this is Baltimore City, and that is the area of interest. The other areas of the county are not impacted. Anything that's not in a color is on well or septic. So the Baltimore City sewer service area is about 13,000 connections, a little over that, which is about 9% of the county's total sewer connections. The destination for the wastewater that comes in through this system goes to the Baltimore City Patapsco wastewater treatment plant. We have a network here of connections that some go directly to Howard County, and then through Howard County, it goes up this line, through this called the Baltimore County Interceptor, and ends up over here at the Baltimore City plant. A good number of our capacity is in this Baltimore County Interceptor, and this little red square here is the Baltimore County Patapsco sewage pump station. That's where we are experiencing our chokehold. Our moratorium area is not the entire Baltimore City service area. This area in yellow here goes directly to Baltimore City. It does not go through Baltimore County. It is not impacted by the moratorium. And we do have development up in this area. This is Brooklyn Park for the most part. We have a community center there that's planned. That is not affected. So what is the moratorium? It's a temporary pause on growth until specific problems are solved or new plans are put in place. We had to act immediately. We could not wait to impose the mitigation action until mitigation actions were developed. They were going to take too long, and I know the developers needed to know where their project's going to get approved. Once we knew we were not going to be able to approve them, that's when we needed to call the moratorium. It does not impact our existing utility customers. As a matter of fact, we are protecting our existing customers. And as you know, it was effective immediately, March 2nd, 2026. So why is capacity important? Well, sewer capacity is the maximum volume of wastewater that a sewer system is designed to safely and effectively collect, transport, and treat. That's our pipes, that's the pump stations, and that's what's at the plant. Exceeding capacity limits can lead to sewer overflows. That's what releases untreated sewage into the environment, backups into homes and basements, and equipment damage due to increased pressure and flow that our systems were not designed to handle. Adequate capacity is critical for public health and safety and is the primary purpose of my position. MDE, that Maryland Department of Environment, requires a wastewater capacity management plan when average daily flow exceeds 80% of design capacity. It's important to understand that because, as Mr. Pittman mentioned, average daily flow is a normal way to determine when you need to start putting into action mitigation plans in order to get more capacity. It is not required. We do not need to do a wastewater capacity plan for projected flows, so that's anything allocated or planned in the pipeline, or peak flows. It just requires it at average daily flow of 80% design capacity. Our average daily flow at the Baltimore wastewater treatment plant is at 75% capacity. Just trying to give you a picture of, we, Anne Arundel County, did not think it was an urgent matter to have additional capacity. We were working with Baltimore City and Baltimore County to increase our capacity, and we had, because that's the more economical plan than to create our own capacity within Anne Arundel County. It's way more economical for us to send it to Baltimore City and through Baltimore County and Howard County. So our historic implementation of our capacity agreements. It's important to understand that the entire Baltimore City service area is governed by interjurisdictional agreements with Baltimore City, Baltimore County, and Howard County. We have 3 different agreements. They've been in place for more than 50 years, and they govern the ownership, operation, maintenance, and capacity of the system. They determine how much we're going to pay Baltimore City and Baltimore County for their service. So we pay them on a monthly basis based off of our average daily flows. That's a traditional industry standard. That's what they expect. They look at what's our average daily flow, and then we pay them through what is required in our agreement. So it's important to understand what average daily flow is. That is the total volume of wastewater typically measured in millions of gallons per day. It's your daily habits. It's what you normally do. You get up, take showers, you use the dishwasher, you do washing machine, maybe you water your lawn. All those things are part of the average daily flow. So recently, we took a look at our 1976 interjurisdictional agreement. This is with Baltimore County, and it was amended in 1981. We did a meticulous review due to regional pressures. I know you've seen the newspaper, Baltimore City and Baltimore County have significant sewer capacity problems. The issues have to do with overflows at their treatment plants, within their pipes, and at their pumping stations. They have serious issues where they are discharging millions of gallons a year into our waterways. So they have very serious issues. And we're aware of that and trying to help them out with whatever we can do to help mitigate any of those issues for what's coming from Anne Arundel County. So in our review, it revealed that the capacity at interconnection should be measured based on peak flow. What's peak flow? It's the maximum rate of wastewater during daily fluctuations, peak usage time. So it's when everybody's doing something at 6 o'clock in the evening and 7 o'clock in the morning. But it also includes wet weather inflow and infiltration. So just giving you a little information about inflow and infiltration. That occurs when stormwater enters through defects in the sewer system, such as manhole cover openings. That's the inflow, or through pipe cracks, that's the infiltration. Anne Arundel County is at its agreed upon peak flow capacity limits with our agreement with Baltimore County Patapsco Sewage Pumping Station. Due to ongoing consent decrees, Baltimore City and Baltimore County have indicated that they are unable to allocate additional capacity to Anne Arundel County. As I stated earlier, it's very important to understand that we have been planning and working with them for several years to get more capacity at their facilities. And we were told no. The final no came on February 9th. That is when we did, regrouped, alerted the administration, worked within our teams. Is there anything else we could do? And it became very clear, no, nothing that we could do immediately, that we were going to be able to start approving these projects that were in the pipeline and had not been allocated yet. So just a little bit more information about these peak flows, because it's important, because this is how things have changed for us. We have an agreement with Baltimore County for a total flow of 10.93 million gallons a day for peak flow. Each connection that we have, the Baltimore County Patapsco Pumping Station, the Linthicum-Shipley Sewage Pumping Station, the Stony Run Interceptor, and the Deep Run Interceptor, that's actually with Howard County, but it does count into our Baltimore County capacity. That all totals up to that 10.93. Linthicum-Shipley, Stony Run, and Deep Run Interceptor are all exceeding peak flow on a daily basis. This chart down here, the blue color is existing flow measured in peak. The red is the allocated flow, so we knew we could approve our already allocated capacity, which was important to Public Works and the administration, that they, since they've already been allocated and are further along in the process, that we would have enough capacity for them. And then this yellow part, that is what would be the projects that we're aware of that are in the pipeline. And our limit here, this dotted line, is the 10.93. So you can see very visually how we're exceeding peak capacity. Just to give you a little perspective, average daily flow, this is including those allocated projects, is at 4.31 million gallons a day. So it's a significant jump up to peak flow. So I wanted to give you a little background on allocations. Allocations is the reservation of capacity at a wastewater treatment plant. It's not capacity at a pump station, although we do look at that and ensure that we can handle the flow for any new development through our pump stations. But it's the main crux of allocation is looking at wastewater treatment plant capacity. Before approving an allocation, a swamp is required to determine if capacity is available. That's done by our Bureau of Engineering Utility Planning Group. If available capacity, and we've approved it, then the capital facility connection charge is required to reserve the capacity. Allocations prevent new development from overwhelming our system as it is being built. System capacities are reviewed every 6 months by the allotment committee. The allotment committee consists of the director of the Office of Planning and Zoning, the director of Inspections and Permits, and myself, the director of the Department of Public Works. We meet every 6 months and go over what kind of capacity we have at the plants, what projects have been allocated, what projects are in the pipeline, and of course the existing flow. We're looking at it every 6 months at a very high level, but our staff and DPW are looking at this every day. So I wanted to tell you about the projects that we formally allocated. They're not affected by the moratorium. We have 76 projects. These all range in what they are: residential, commercial, industrial. The second column indicates the number of EDUs that have been allocated. I haven't mentioned EDUs yet, but that's how we determine allocation. It's equivalent dwelling unit. One EDU is equal to 250 gallons a day. So this just gives you an idea. It's about little less than 500,000 gallons a day of capacity that's allocated. And just to give you a sense of where these allocated projects are, we've only issued 309 permits related to the allocated EDUs. So there is quite a lot of variability of where they are in their construction. So affected developments that are not yet allocated. This is, of course, the same situation. I have it divided up by which connection point to Baltimore County that they are in. But this is over 500,000 gallons a day of capacity that's needed in order to approve these permits. I should say, yeah, I've already said, it's about 21 projects. So I want to assure you, because I'm sure you're thinking, wow, you must not do anything with capacity if you got to this point here, but no, we do a lot. One, I mentioned how important inflow and infiltration is. We have a whole group dedicated to that. They've done over 4,000 work orders addressing inflow and infiltration just in the Baltimore City sewer service area alone over the last 5 years. It's a significant amount of work of doing inspections, sewer cleanouts, manhole cover replacements, and those sort of things. What a big part of what they do is we have to there are people that unlawfully connect to our system. So they are basically either connecting directly, their sewage going directly into our system, or it could be they've connected a sump pump or a downspout into our system, which means stormwater gets in there, which is a problem. So we take legal action. They're actually actively looking for those illegal connections and taking legal action if we find that. I mentioned the allotment committee's review of capacity. New connections are reviewed to determine if capacity is available through a swamp. We have a robust allocation approval process, which I know development community does not like because it takes time, but it's important that we do that in order to make sure that we have capacity and that it's paid for. We have strategic plans and modeling that we're always doing, looking at capacity. And in our current CIP, we have $39 million in investments and upgrades, again, just in this Baltimore City sewer service area over the next 6 years. And we, of course, do routine preventative maintenance of sewage pumping stations and our sewer mains to make sure that they are running as effectively as possible. The important thing here is, what are we going to do to fix this? So we have an action plan. It's a combination of collaboration, where we're working with cross-jurisdictional team to come up with ways to get through this moratorium as quickly as possible. We have a technical aspect of it, where we're looking at capacity and infrastructure. One of the most promising, and why we're saying 4 to 5 years for this, is our diversion strategies. Let me talk a little bit more about each one of these. Collaboration, already Mr. Pittman said, we're continuing to work with Baltimore County and Baltimore City. We have not given up on trying to get additional capacity from them. As I stated earlier, that's the most effective way of getting our capacity the quickest and also the most reasonably priced. So we're still working on that at whatever levels we have to in order to try to work and come to a resolution there. So that's not off the table yet. We're working with, work with the development committee, work with the development community on proffers that can allow some projects to move forward if they can help build capacity or speed up diversion strategies. BWI Airport is not in our sewer service area because they are connected directly to Baltimore County. So we want to talk to the airport to see if they have any available capacity that they may be able to sell to us. And then we want to collaborate with the Maryland Department of the Environment on possible statewide solutions. This is a regional problem. It's not just an Anne Arundel County problem, but we're the first ones to have to come out with a moratorium on it. And then Mr. Pittman already mentioned creating a moratorium mitigation strategy work group to talk about ways to mitigate the impacts of the moratorium and also look at strategies for how we can get through it as quickly as possible. Some of the technical things that we're working on is an upgrade to the Linthicum-Shipley pump station. We have a capital project for that. We're implementing operational improvements to optimize flow management, such as increasing the cleaning and flushing frequency in that area. That helps with optimizing the flow, which can help with capacity. Evaluate if pumping and hauling strategy is feasible. Evaluate if a small treatment plant without connection to Baltimore City is feasible. I will say both of those options are long shots, but it's part of our effort to look at in each and every opportunity for getting through this mitigation strategy. If those turn out to be the best solutions, then we will pursue them until they're not solutions. Right now, my staff is currently meeting with and talking to all the allocated projects to fine tune what their needs are to see if there's any freeing up capacity. As I mentioned, we don't have, all of those projects have not been permitted, so there may be some available capacity that is relinquished by those developers that already have allocated projects. That may not happen, but they're gonna call them anyway, so we'll find out. So we have some remaining CIP projects to address I&I. It's about 700 work orders that are going into a capital project or in the capital project. We're going to prioritize that to get that done quickly. Understanding the CIP project for inflow and infiltration is a county-wide project, but we're going to prioritize getting the Baltimore City projects done first. We're going to continue evaluating the use of reclaimed water for certain applications. So explain reclaimed water. That is when water is treated through the wastewater treatment plant. Instead of being discharged into a waterway, it's reused for some other purpose. We do this at the Cox Creek wastewater treatment plant, where we provide reclaimed water to Raven Power to power their systems there. It is a potential use for data centers, other kinds of things, not for drinking water, but it can be used for other sources. So as I mentioned earlier, I think our most promising option here is going to be a sewer diversion plan. What does that mean? It's plan to evaluate at least 5 diversion alternatives, which means sending the flow somewhere other than Baltimore City or directly to Baltimore City plant, not through Baltimore County. That plan will be completed in 8 months. It's a high priority. I have one of our best project managers on that project who will be pushing to get it done within that 8 months. Once we have selected a strategy from that evaluation, it will take 4 to 5 years to make that happen. The reason it takes so long is it involves building pipes and pumping stations to take the flow from Baltimore City, or really in this case, the connections through Baltimore County, to other parts of our county. Don't know what it's going to cost. I can only estimate. We did a diversion from our Piney Orchard treatment plant over to Patuxent. That was a $38 million project. So it's going to be somewhere in that range, if not higher. So I just want to give you an example, just have a picture of what a diversion concept is. As I showed you earlier, this light yellow, including these 2 darker yellows, are our the Baltimore City sewer service area. What a diversion plan would do was take some of the waste, this is like 1 to 2 million gallons a day, and divert it to, in this case, the Patuxent Water Reclamation Facility. So it would be freeing up capacity in this part. Can you guys see my, yes, okay. Freeing up capacity in this part of the service area by sending it somewhere else. There's other diversion strategies that can take it possibly over to Cox Creek, which is in this direction. And then, as I mentioned earlier, this is our Baltimore City plant. We do have direct connections, so there could be possibility of diverting some waste directly into Baltimore City. We're looking at as many options as we can there. Like I said, at least 5. So you may be wondering, what is the capacity concerns in other areas of the county? We don't really have any right now. Anne Arundel County is self-reliant in nearly all of our sewer service areas. We plan, design, construct capacity according to a comprehensive water and sewer plan. Our annual review of pump stations that are at or above 80% capacity for existing, allocated, and planned projects. And if you remember, I said earlier, MDE only requires us to do that if it's 80% capacity at existing. But our practice for pump stations is to also look at allocated and planned projects to include for a capital project upgrade. We currently have 8 pumping stations that are in this category at the 80% or around 80% for existing, allocated, and planned projects. The Maryland City Sewer Service area is at 70% capacity. Again, we could wait till 80%, but we have a study ongoing for plant and pumping station upgrades to increase capacity at the Maryland City Sewer Service area. That's another high growth area in the county. So, in summary, a moratorium was declared to protect the public health and the environment. We have adequate physical capacity for all existing and allocated flows at all connection locations. The county is critically near agreed upon peak flow limits and overcapacity during I&I events. We have our partner jurisdictions have stated they cannot allocate more capacity due to ongoing consent decrees. We have continued support. We will need your continued support for funding capital improvements for increased growth with revenue from our capital facility connection charges. And our action plan focuses on strategic diversion, coordination with our partners, capital improvements, and sewer system optimization. So with that, I'm open for any questions you may have.
Thank you, Ms. Henry. Ms. Fiedler.
Thank you. First, thank you for coming out and being prepared to answer some tough questions and explaining a very technical issue that we have never experienced, thankfully, until now in the county. Just so that I understand how the agreement works, the consent order applies to all of the counties who are using that system?
The consent decree is issued to Baltimore County and Baltimore City for their system, which is our system, because we contribute to the sewage in their system.
Okay, and then when the decision to move from how we calculate capacity came from that study, that review, right?
The review of the agreements, yes,
And the issues that the city was having with their system.
yes.
Okay.
And the
When,
county.
at what point, when was that initiated? That review of their system?
2023 is when we started looking at our agreement and really taking a deep dive into, what being aware of their issues and making sure that we're not contributing any worse to that, and then also looking at capacity.
Okay, and then February 9th was when,
In that time, 2023, like I said, started our own evaluation. Over that time, we're evaluating things. We're working with and communicating with the city and the county, by Baltimore City, Baltimore County. And we've had multiple meetings with them looking at capacity, and we were hopeful all along this, to this period. Baltimore County had given us a no in January, but their no was kind of not clear. They said, well, you need to go through Baltimore City. So Baltimore City was, at our understanding, the final word on whether we could get more capacity. That last meeting was on February 9th, and we were told no.
okay. So then, as we're walking through potential solutions, and one of the solutions being that we borrow capacity, do we already know the likelihood that that is not really an option, knowing that they recently said no?
Well, I will say that now that we've issued the moratorium, that has alerted people to taking our needs a little more seriously, possibly than they had been up to this point. The moratorium was a strong statement. I know it's not liked, but it's where we were. So we have still continuing our conversations with them. They have not said no. I've asked them for, I talked to Mr. Pittman about it earlier, my request, this was just Friday, can you at least temporarily give us some relief on a temporary basis till we build out our diversion strategies? And then, at that point, we should be able to come off of, not entirely, we would never be 100% independent from Baltimore City when it comes to sewer. Because you have to think about, we have to get capacity, and the Maryland Department of Environment doesn't want us discharging any more nitrogen and phosphorus into the waterways than we already have. So there's tight limits on capacity statewide because of the impacts to the waterways. But yeah, so we had a better conversation on Friday since the moratorium about what our options are. So they're looking at within their system to see if there's any way they can free anything up by doing other strategies within their own systems that could help us. So it's not a no, I'm sorry.
Well, and I would mark this point that while nobody liked doing the moratorium, we were legally required to do something, or we'd be in violation, so we had to do it. It has been a wake-up call, and that is why I believe that, and maybe I'm more optimistic than you, that now that it's been elevated, our CAO has talked to the neighboring CAOs. I have talked to the mayor and county executives, and then the governor's office and MDE and all of them. So I believe that the moratorium has forced everybody to act, and that now the likelihood of getting this additional allocation is much higher.
okay, and then this might be my final question. I'm kind of going down a linear train of thought. Are our neighboring jurisdictions, do they have potential capacity and not in the same predicament that Anne Arundel County is in, because they are not planning for the amount of growth that Anne Arundel County is planning for? Is that's safe to some?
My thought as well, but I will.
So Baltimore City, it's a city, so they're
Yeah.
already built out. There's
Yep.
not a lot, they don't have trees to tear down, they're identified as parks, so they're not building new capacity in Baltimore City. Baltimore City's capacity issue is because stormwater gets into their system, so it's not the sewage that they have to treat, they end up treating stormwater, which nobody, it's a waste of money and time and effort, but it's the reality of their system. So they don't really have a capacity issue. They're not worried about putting out a moratorium as it relates to that. Baltimore County, my understanding, and I can't really answer fully for them, it's up to Baltimore County to answer that, but what I understand from a very high level is they don't have necessarily an immediate need today for a lot of development in the same area, same system that goes to Baltimore County sewage pump station, but they also have a situation with infiltration and inflow that they're concerned about. So they're afraid to give out more capacity to us in the concerns that it will overwhelm their system.
Got it. Okay.
And we're looking at 1 million gallons a day. That's what we think we need.
Okay. I'll pause.
Mr. Smith.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate you all. I mean, this was certainly informative, and I know we've had conversations over the last week from both of you talking about this subject. But you had mentioned on February 9th that that was the final no. When was the first no? Did that start with the study?
I don't know. Can't recall an exact date of when that is. It's been discussions. I would say no real no, except for Baltimore County. Like I said, that was in January, saying they were going to say no, but that we could talk to Baltimore City and maybe they would have a different answer. When we talked to Baltimore City, that was our final discussion about it, which was a final no from Baltimore City that they could not accommodate our request. But the discussions have been going on with them since 2023. No flat out no's.
But were there concerns conveyed during those discussions since 2023?
Not really, no, not from them. I mean, our concerns and what we're looking for as far as capacity, that was being expressed. Their concerns about inflow and infiltration was definitely being discussed. We were not under the impression that they were going to say, no, you cannot get more capacity.
We did a comprehensive rezoning. We're still doing it for some of the southern portion, but we certainly did it for region, was it 1 and 3, that northern portion of the county. When we do comprehensive rezoning processes, did that also take into account potential impacts to APF standards or sewage standards for those areas? And does that trigger a assessment to determine whether or not these new changes would potentially impact that capacity?
So what happens when the zoning changes for the county is that has to get put into our strategic plans. It's a delay from when the zoning changes occur. We're reacting to those zoning changes because they've been made rather quickly, through this may seem like forever to you guys, but in our lives, it's a quicker turnaround. So once we are aware of them, we go out to a consultant. It's done through Capital Project to look at our strategic plans. In this case, sewer plans. How are these zoning changes going to impact our strategic plans? What kind of capacity are we going to need now? And the capacity limits did change. So the exact numbers I can't rattle off right now, but it was an increase in the amount of capacity that was going to be needed based off of allowing multi-use projects and going from industrial to mixed use. That requires more flow and capacity.
And the sewer master plan that we perform, or we sort of involved in, does that look at the service areas and how they are
Yes.
able to provide our future needs?
Yes.
And was there any concern during that process that indicated this was going to be on the forefront for us to address?
No, because we were looking at average daily flow, and that difference between the average daily flow and the peak flow is what really pushed us over the edge of realizing that it was a significant capacity issue.
And the peak flow conversion happened when? When did that dialogue from average daily to peak flow occur?
That's been in the last year and a half.
Was there any notification given to? Obviously, it wasn't given to the council, but was there discussions during that year and a half when that peak flow changed or verbiage changed? Did anyone bring up if we do switch to this, there might be some concerns about our capacity and whether or not we can sustain this long term? Was at that year and a half ago, was that ever brought up in?
Yes, we've been discussing it. Yes.
Would that have been an appropriate time to bring the council in? If that was a concern between the average daily and peak flow? And I'm just curious, just to make sure the funding, because we passed a budget last year that certainly was less than a year and a half ago, that could have potentially also been allocating money to help with the service areas expansion.
You may remember that in the fiscal year 26 budget presentation that I gave, I did talk about Baltimore City. I said we have a concern with capacity in Baltimore City. We're talking about it in terms of rates and why we needed capital facility connection charges increases and what the difference is between capacity for sewer or water versus capacity for a school or for road capacity. And that once you get to the point of reaching your capacity in sewer, you can't approve permits anymore. It's different. Then you could crowd a school, you can have more traffic on your roads, you cannot approve, it's illegal to approve permits when you're over capacity in the sewer system. So I did mention it at that meeting when we were talking about capital facility connection charges.
But funding is not a limiting concern here right now. We would not have been moving forward with a project even if there had been money in the budget. Now, in this budget, we are talking about it, but last year that would not have been appropriate. We have to present, a proposal for a project to you, and now that is being discussed.
And what is, you said 30, somewhere in the 38, $40 million or more for, so we have what, you said 7 pump or treatment facilities here in the county,
Yes.
several hundred pumping stations?
Yes, we have, let's get back to the beginning. So we have 7 wastewater treatment plants, and we have 266 pump stations, and we have over 1,600 miles of sewer mains. That's the countywide system. But obviously, looking at Baltimore City here, we can get it over to Patuxent. This is I guess that's an olive green color, or Cox Creek, which is this brownish color. These are not good colors maybe, but anyway, that makes more sense, or getting it over here into Baltimore City. Doesn't make sense. We're not going to be able to take Baltimore City flow down to Broadneck. I mean, that would be very high priced, and when we already have treatment plants that are closer.
If I have a house today and I want to put an addition on, and because my in-laws are moving in and it adds a bathroom, would this impact that?
No. Building permit, so one single-family residential home is 1 EDU, whether it's a palatial mansion or it's a 1,600 square foot house. Whether you have a deck or a garage or apartment over the top of it, it's still 250 gallons a day is what we look at for the equivalent dwelling unit. So it would not impact it.
And what about business? If I'm a small business and I have a shop and I purchased a lot next door and I want to expand that business, would that impact them?
Yeah, so if you're expanding, a business expanding their square footage, yes, it could affect it.
And I know, because I don't want to talk too long, I'll probably have some questions later. Over the last year and a half, were there, for the applications that have come in over the last year and a half, was there any indication or concern given to them when it comes to whether or not, because you said at least the last year and a half, it started to boil up. Have we alerted the folks who have put in applications that, hey, we'll take your application, but there might be some concerns, be prepared to, whatever it is, to give them a notice so that they have to pivot, they have the ability to do that. Were any of the applicants, did they receive any of that communication?
Yeah, so my staff speaks with them pretty regularly when they're looking for, wanting to build. They have a plan, they're determining how many EDUs they're going to need, what they're going to build there. There are some developers, because some of their projects were in this area where my staff was saying, we're going to have an issue with capacity here. Let's see what they weren't flat out told no, because they didn't have the authority to do that, but they were saying we're concerned about capacity in this area. That would be not as a blanket announcement. The blanket announcement, the way we have our format of putting out an announcement is an orange notice. So it was onesie, twosie, as a development came in, wanted to do things, talking with my staff, that's how they were, would have at least should have been somewhat alerted that we have an issue here.
And is there any way going forward that, obviously, the notice is primarily in my councilmatic district, so I certainly was shocked when I saw it. And it's also a critical area for the state when you look at the economic impact that's in that area between the outskirts of the airport and Arundel Mall and Maryland Live and that whole sort of tech corridor, if you will. I was certainly, the first time I had heard about the orange notice was literally when I saw the email here last week. And as a legislator, I think for me, if there's any way in the future to bring us in well in advance of that. If we knew at least a year and a half ago that there might be the slight indication of concern, because I know when it comes to school capacity, we all vote on that. So we know if a school's going to be closed because we're involved in that process. And so when it comes to this issue and a limiting factor like this, I mean, I would certainly appreciate being informed the moment someone says, hey, this is a yellow flag, not even red, when it's yellow, just so we know and we can be prepared and not caught off guard and be shocked that, because the way it appeared was it just came out of the blue. And it certainly made me feel a certain way. But I understand you all have to do what you had to do to address it, and no issues with that. But I think going forward, this should certainly be a conversation where legislators are brought in the moment it goes from green to yellow, at least in my eyes. So appreciate at least this input, Madam Chair.
Ms. Rabia.
Thank you. I just have a couple questions. Am I understanding correctly that part of the reason that this sort of came up so suddenly was a change in the method of calculating what was considered available capacity?
Yes.
And that change was, where did that change come from?
So it's in our agreements with Baltimore County, where Baltimore County agreement says we should measure that our capacity is based off of peak flow, not average daily flow.
So, okay, and actually this is perfect because I was actually going to ask you to bring up that exact slide.
I was reading them.
Thank you. So I understand that no matter where we are, and I don't want to spend too much time looking backwards because we are where we are. We need to plan to go forward. We can hash out, but we need to focus on how we move forward. Just looking at looking at this bar graph here, this, I guess, horizontal bar graph, it looks like, if you're looking at average daily flow, we've got plenty of capacity, but then, making that change to peak flow is dramatically different. So I'm curious, do you think that is a fair representation? Like this new calculation, is that a fair representation of the actual capacity, or is there actually maybe some middle ground in terms of calculating? Okay, I'm seeing nodding heads, because or at least I guess that's at least a hopeful that maybe this calculation is sort of, maybe, yes, I would like to think that maybe this is the yellow flag that can get us, kind of kicked into high gear, so we don't get to the red flag if we can have conversations about what a more balanced calculation might be.
That is part of our discussions with the county, because our city flow is based off of average daily flow. That's our agreement with them. Baltimore County has this, I don't know about fair or unfair, but this unusual peak flow requirement for capacity. That is not what the normal agreements have, but it is for Baltimore County. So yes, I'm hopeful that we may be able to get through to them on that.
I need to run to 10 o'clock, but I will just say that I would use the term unfair. And there is a lot of space between those two lines that would solve the problem for us. And that's why I'm really looking forward to sitting down with not just Baltimore County, but also MDE and the governor's team to get that resolved. It is, in my view, unfair and unreasonable.
Sort of overkill.
Yeah.
Okay. So
It is, I just would like to add to that the reason they want to track it is in a peak flow way is because of the I&I concerns of their system. I don't believe Anne Arundel County has a significant I&I problem because we have been investing millions of dollars, both operationally and in capital projects, to ensure that we don't have a problem. But I understand from, technically from managing their sewer, and what's important to them is that they do not overwhelm their own system. So I understand why they have peak flow in there, but is there hope for some other option? I hope so.
okay, thank you. And then I guess, we have heard, I don't know, I don't pay attention geographically to where things are happening in Baltimore City, but we have heard stories in the news over the past couple of years that there has been, like sewage backups in homes and things like that. Is that, and I realize that that may not be where, the part of Baltimore City where we're connecting to, but is that the kind of thing that we would be, like, is that the kind of thing that at least Baltimore City is experiencing that goes to inflow and infiltration?
Yes.
Okay.
So their capacity concerns, like I said before, relate to I&I. They do have significant basement backup issues or backups within people's homes. So they're getting raw sewage coming into their home because they can't leave their property and get over to the whatever facility on the Baltimore City side. But Patapsco, their main plants in Baltimore City are Patapsco, where our sewage goes, and there's Back River. If you drive down 95, you smell Back River from there. They have issues with their plants. They're working very hard. It's been spending years trying to correct problems, and more problems keep coming up. I'm trying to prevent that from happening in Anne Arundel County. I don't want that to be where we are in the future. They have not put the investments, and I'm not judging them. They have the way that they do things, but the money that they've needed to invest and how they've invested has resulted in their system that they have today. My job as the director of the Public Works is to protect our system and not allow that to happen, even if it's a hard decision that a lot of people don't like, such as the moratorium.
Yeah, and I think that's understandable. I mean, even with their, folks always say, oh, the taxes in Baltimore City are much higher, but the reality is their tax base isn't as large because their property values aren't as high. So, they're in a tighter position with respect to budget than I think we are here in Anne Arundel County, even though we have, lower taxes. I think you said it, but I just need to make sure I understood correctly. The Patapsco, which is the part we flow into, is not necessarily causing this is brand new terminology, so I'm going to try and use it, the I&I concerns that Baltimore City is seeing. Like that is not sort of the problem facility.
Do you mean the city Patapsco plant or there's Baltimore County Patapsco pump station? And yes, that has capacity concerns there. Is that what the question is?
So, and we interact with both, right?
Yeah,
so we interface with
that's
both.
So
the red,
to make it even more weird is we have a Anne Arundel County Patapsco sewage pumping station, just to make it as complicated as possible. But yes, so in this, my mouse is no longer working. In this area, so the pumping station, this is the Baltimore County pump station, that's a choke point. And it does have inflow. From what we understand from Baltimore County, they do have an inflow and infiltration problem there. Okay. From their own system. They don't know where it's all coming from. We're trying to ensure that it's not coming from Anne Arundel County through our, showing them our history of what we do for our system, but they do have an issue there. Does that answer your question?
Yeah,
okay.
and the other one, sort of the part of that line that's colored red, and the arrow, the other arrow,
Yes.
at the other end.
So this is
go ahead.
This is Howard County. What we also connect into Howard County, and it goes through this red is the Howard County interceptor. That's their pipeline. But then it connects here. This blue line is the Baltimore County interceptor. That's where there's issues. We're as far, that's where the main issues are, and going down to this pumping station.
Okay, so those colors have nothing to do with flow. Those colors are just designating the geographic.
Well, no, it is a pipeline. It's literally a pipe that it's connecting.
Right, but green doesn't mean capacity is good,
no.
red meaning, okay.
Yeah, great
Okay.
point. I hadn't thought of that. No, it does not.
Okay.
Thank you for,
Okay.
I didn't think of that. We're just using different colors.
Okay,
and they're
yep,
random.
no, that's helpful. Make sure I'm not adding something that isn't there. Okay, I think, actually one last question, because someone was bringing up EDUs. Does that mean accessory dwelling units would be impacted? Because if I vaguely recall that accessory dwelling units are calculated as an additional EDU?
It's if it's a separate.
If it's a detached?
Yes, if it's a garage over an attached garage or a basement that's being converted to an apartment, that should not be affected.
But a detached ADU would be? Okay.
Could be.
Could be, okay. All right, thank you.
The next person, just a clarification. When we calculate in Anne Arundel County, because we have planned and are doing greater things for the I&I parts. Are our peak flow calculations on our own system lower than what Baltimore City has?
Yes, they are. Well, it depends on the service area, but they range from 1.4 to 1.8. And the calculation is 2.5 for this
wow.
peak flow. Yeah,
It's
so
kind
yes, they are different.
And
And that's based off, that 2.5 is based off the Maryland curve. It's an MDE calculation. And they call it the Maryland peaking curve. And that's a number that they use.
okay. All right, thank you. Ms. Pickard.
I believe Mr. Volkey was first.
Mr. Volkey.
Thank you. All right, I have a question for you on slide 3, if we can go back to that. So looking at slide 3, you have not included in the moratorium the Brooklyn Park area, which is up there in yellow, and you've also not included BWI Airport, which is a big gray shaded portion there in the middle. If you go to the slide previous to this, slide 2, you can see that in the green section there at the top where you show the sewer service areas, you have Baltimore City. Can you just explain, and if I missed it, I'm sorry, but why it is that those two spots, which are clearly part of the Baltimore City sewer service area, have not been included in the moratorium?
I'll start with, yes, I did explain this,
You did, I'm
but I
sorry.
will,
Okay.
so everyone's clear.
Yeah.
BWI connects directly to Baltimore County. They connect to the same Baltimore County interceptor that we do. So although we provide them with water, we are not providing them with sewer capacity. So they have
yeah.
their own separate capacity. I think it's like 2.5 million gallons a day, somewhere along
So
there.
they're not going to the Baltimore City Patapsco
They
wastewater
go there,
treatment
but they
plant.
have their own agreement and their own capacity. It's totally separate from Anne Arundel County. Even though the airport's in the county, they have their own agreement with Baltimore County for their sewer capacity.
So does that affect flow into the sewer system to the wastewater treatment plant and the calculation of peak flows?
Not for the county, but it does for BWI. BWI has their own agreement,
I
so
get
they're
you.
responsible for their own capacity and working out whatever they need to with Baltimore County. But what from our perspective, we are talking with BWI Airport to see if there's any possibility of any capacity they could free up that they may not need.
Okay.
But they have their own, it's listed in our agreement, but it's their own agreement. So we know that it exists. It's just not part of, we don't have anything to do with it, any authority over it.
So if I'm understanding it correctly, they're in the same service area. They're impacting the flow rates into the wastewater treatment plant, but it's your position that we don't have any authority to say we can stop something here or there because they have their own private contract with
Yes,
the
yes.
other entities. Okay,
Right.
all right.
The second part of your question was
Yep.
about the moratorium area.
Yeah.
This yellow part of the sewer service area connects directly into Baltimore City plant. We don't have a capacity problem with our agreement with Baltimore City regarding the plant, so this is still open for development.
What does that
The
mean?
problem is the choke point is this Baltimore County Patapsco sewage pumping station and interceptor. That's where the capacity limits are, and that's why we're okay for development here, because it doesn't have to go through the Baltimore County pump station or interceptor. It goes directly to the treatment plant.
But it still impacts the overall flow rates into the sewage area. It still
It
impacts the flow
just,
rates.
it impacts
to the
the
treatment
flow
plant.
to the plant.
Yeah.
And our issue, we don't have an issue with the flow to the plant because it's based off of average daily flow. That's our agreement, not on peak with Baltimore City. The problem is our agreement with Baltimore County and that being done on peak flow.
I got you, which is from 1981 that clearly somebody didn't see that part of it.
That's right.
Okay, got it. All right, so then let me kind of move to a different piece of this puzzle that's concerning to me. So I did have a chance to go through the 300-page 2022 water sewer master plan yesterday. And in looking at it, the concern that I have is when you talk about diversions and you say we're going to look at moving flow potentially to other places, one of the places you highlighted is Cox Creek. Cox Creek, if you look at it, seems to me that it's already at a pretty high use rate. And so the concern I have is that without some significant improvements and sort of upgrades there, shifting flow to Cox Creek is going to tax a system that's already pretty taxed at an even higher level of taxation. And from what I can see from the 22 plan, I don't think that the Cox Creek projections that you have take into account some of the new changes in the zoning that just happened in the comprehensive rezoning, where there's an additional 1,000 units at the end of Solly Road, and then across the street at Brandon Shores, another 1,900, so another 3,000 units. So when I did a little bit of math on what that would be at 250 gallons per day per those EDUs, doing that math, I think we're going to be over on Cox Creek. So then I'm concerned about what this is going to look like in the aggregate, right? The whole picture. So I can give you some specific places in the plan that are concerning. I'm on page 141 of the the 2022 plan is what I'll just call it. So Baltimore City in the service area was at an 84.4% capacity. Cox Creek was at an 80.1% capacity. That was in 2020. That was based on what you knew then. On the 2030 projections, Baltimore City was going to go to 96.2. Cox Creek was at 89.8. In the 2040 projections, Baltimore City was at 100.8% capacity. Cox Creek was at 92.4% capacity. And then when we look at page 160, where it talks about the Baltimore City service area, it talks about what's served by that and the projected continued growth, another 65,000 people, population by 2050. And then we go back and we look at what the projected growth rate is for the Cox Creek service area. That's on page 166, another 178,000 people by 2050. My question is, where is all the capacity coming from to deal with that? Because you can't, I don't see any way that in your North County plan, you can say we're going to divert flow to Cox Creek and then you're going to accommodate all this growth that we know is coming in that sewer service area. So like, what is the plan there? Because I'm concerned about the next steps.
I think I was clear in that we are looking, and obviously I wasn't, but
Yeah,
we
I
are
did.
looking at many options with the diversion, one of which is Cox Creek, but you're absolutely right. We would need to get more capacity in order to be able to do that. I've given the example of what would take to move to the Patuxent sewer service area where we do have more capacity than we have at Cox Creek. But I don't want to rule out Cox Creek because that might end up being a better option. I don't know. We're looking at, the whole point is we're looking at any and every option that could work, including direct connection to the city, not going through that Baltimore County Interceptor pumping station. Cox Creek is in the mix, and Patuxent. So we're looking at whatever we can do. I mean, it's kind of unlimited in what we could look at, but that'll help us narrow down and what we actually are going to pursue.
Then I guess my follow-up question to that would be, so if we've got this issue of peak flows with Baltimore City, and we're looking at diversion options, and we're looking at potentially saying, okay, we need to come up with some sort of comprehensive solution for North County that is an entire issue, how is it that we can say, we're going to keep business as usual in the Cox Creek service area, we're going to let that grow, we know we're already pretty close to capacity, we know that with some of these unanticipated changes to zoning, that we may have even more capacity issues up there, and we're going to say, but let's just keep doing what we're doing over there, and I guess we'll sort of figure it out as we go. How are we going to do that?
Looking at our Cox Creek capacity, like what it is, our
Sure.
safe capacity and flow, and looking at what we need for 2030, looks like we need 2 million gallons a day more capacity by 20. No, I'm sorry. We have available capacity today for what we think we're going to need in 2030 of 2 million gallons. So that's per day. So, I mean, I understand what you're saying, and it's all part of our review and part of the strategic plan. We'll have to look at all that. I mean, that's part of the strategic plan and getting into more details about all the capacity needs that would have to happen in that area and whether Cox Creek's even on its own trajectory for other upgrades. And it is. If you see a capital project for Cox Creek in the
I looked, I didn't, tell me which one it is, which capital project, because that was one of my questions.
That
Was
one
I
I
was in
might
the
have
capital
to-
program, and
I
I want
might
to know
have to
which
phone
ones.
a friend on that
That's
one.
fine.
Chris?
Yeah.
Okay, you can come up. You have to come up.
Shouting from the
I'm
back.
sorry, I did tell him I was gonna try to avoid having to bring him up, but,
Sorry, Chris Murphy, engineering administrator for DPW. So we have a couple different, just something to go back to strategic wise. We did finished a recent study on Cox Creek, expanding it to 16.5 MGD. And the way that we would treat that, we would actually increase the level of treatment essentially so that we could hit a limit that's different. Oh,
He asked what project.
okay.
It's good.
So,
This
so
is
we
helpful.
yeah. So we have a number of projects. We do a lot of our projects through S808-300, which is our water treatment plant projects. There's an aeration improvement project that we have that's listed for Cox Creek improvements. We have a number of septic Cox Creek septage project that we're working on.
Did you say 808-300?
I think it's 808-300. Yeah.
That's Broadwater Ops Building Addition. It's got 0 funding in all the out years. I don't think it's that one.
No, I'm sorry. I don't
That's
know
fine.
the numbers.
I'm
I'll
just-
say. It's our wastewater.
Okay.
It's our wastewater plant upgrade rehab. It might be S803. I think it's S80. It's not S808-300. Then it's S803-300.
He only has like 300 capital projects, so just so you put it in perspective of
Well-
what you're asking him to remember right now.
And to be clear, this isn't like a gotcha in the moment. I just need to know what the answer is to this, because to me, I looked through the appendix to try to see what the additions were in subs, like in pump stations, to see, okay, what specific ones did you reference in the wastewater plan and in the 2022 plan, and then which one of those are actually moving? Go ahead, if you found it.
No, it's just our wastewater upgrade is S80300. S803,000.
Yeah.
S80300.
3,000.
S80300.
Yeah.
There is no S80300.
Try 3,000, add another 0.
Sorry.
I don't see that either. All right, well, you all have to get that to me because I can't find it, but. What is it? 810, that's different. Okay, that is Cox Creek Septic Facility Improvement. That had 4.47 in FY26 with no funding in the out years. That was to build a new septage receiving facility at Cox Creek Water Reclamation Facility.
Yeah, so we have, so I'm just
So
pulled
has
up my
that-
list here. We have, S802-300. I'm sorry, I messed up with S802-300. S802-300 is our WRF upgrade retro. We also have our S806-100, which are Cox Creek non-ENR upgrades. We have an aeration project, which will be Cox Creek also, which is, I can find that. That's S810-0600. We've done studies under X764-200 to see if we can increase the capacity there. We think that's probably a likely option to take it up to 16.5. We can do minor improvements to make that happen. Yeah, so we are looking at these pieces, and I understand your concern.
So I'm looking at like page 167 of the 2022 plan, and it talks about the sewer allocation report for Cox Creek SSA as of November 2021. It says safe capacity in 2025, 15 million gallons, right?
Yeah.
I think I'm reading that right. All right, 15 million daily gallons, MDGs, is that what you do?
Yeah.
Okay. It says the flow projected in 2025 is 14.46 million, leaving in a capacity available for allotment of 540,000, right? At the same time that you said Cox Creek had that, this report said that the capacity in the city service area was 400,000 MDGs. So we're roughly at the same spot in the city and Cox Creek. We got surprised by what happened in the city. I get it because somebody didn't see that in the agreement realizing peak flow. But my concern is in Cox Creek, absent the increase to 16.5, if you're still at 15, with the additional growth that we know is coming based on applications that have come into the pipeline at this point, we're going to be at or over capacity from what I can see. And so I guess that's my question is, how are we dealing with that? And how are we looking at that and saying we're going to approve those developments? I don't see how we have sewage capacity. That's my question.
Yeah, so I don't have the numbers in front of me, but one of the
Yeah.
things that we look at in the allotment committee is to see where we are with flow, to make sure that we're doing the timing of the improvements at the appropriate time. There's a report from 24. It shows that we have available capacity about 3 million gallons in 2025 and 2030.
At Cox Creek,
At Cox Creek, we have 2 million gallons in 2030.
how did that change from what you have on page 167 of the plan?
This is the water sewer master plan?
Yeah.
Okay, so that was in 2022. I don't know. Yeah, we update it every 3 to 4 years. So in the next year, there'll be an update.
I guess my question is, did the capacity increase or did the flow increase? Or flow
We
decrease?
have not changed the capacity at Cox Creek. So
Okay.
It's still 15 mg.
So then is the flow projection too high in what you projected in 22 and it's not as high and that's what's giving you the excess capacity? There's really only two levers, right?
Yeah. So as we do flow projection,
Yeah.
we're redoing flow projections all the time to see where we are, to make sure that we don't get sewer spills, we don't have plants at over capacity. The number in 2022 is probably different than the number in 2024 because, as you said, new projects have come through. And so that number adjusts.
But that would seem to increase flow, not decrease flow. So my concern is the net, right? There's only two levers. There's capacity and there's flow. And if we, in 2021, we're saying our projected 25 capacity was 540,000 MDGs, that's all we've got, without even projecting some of the rezoning that's happened up there. If we haven't increased capacity and we've seen flow go where we thought it would be, and then flow is even potentially going to be higher, how are we not projected to be over in that service area?
So it's likely that the 2022 flow, so you're saying the 2022 master plan.
Yeah, I can show it to you if you.
Shows that we had
Tell-
500,000. I did show that we had
540.
540 extra sitting around.
It's a capacity available for allotment is what it
Yeah.
says.
So when they do those flow projections, they also include the projects that are in the pipeline.
Yeah, but how would you include a project in the pipeline that wasn't
That
zoned
wasn't
at
there
that
yet.
time?
Yeah,
right?
I agree with you.
You could-
So the number of the 2022 would be different than it is in 2024. But your question is it lower in 2024?
My point to you, where I'm trying to get with this is, I don't understand how that service area isn't going to blow over the capacity unless you do something to increase the capacity in very short order. That's what I'm saying to you. What I'm trying to do is give you the numbers that I'm using to get to that conclusion. And I'm asking you, based on my premises, are you getting a different conclusion? Are my premises wrong? Is my conclusion wrong? Where am I wrong in this process? Because what I'm seeing is Cox Creek is in exactly the same spot as Baltimore City in terms of you're at or near capacity, and with additional growth,
You're
it's
looking
going.
at a 2022 report, which is
Yeah.
going to be updated, which will have more numbers, and we'll be happy to
Okay.
give you
Yeah, fine.
specific, what
That's
we're
fine.
showing for available for allocation in Cox Creek. We'll give you the most recent numbers that we have.
That'd be great, because I just don't want to get to this again.
Understood. We don't either. That's why we're looking at it. That's why when I talked about what's looking at in the rest of the county, so I could be ready to present on this, Cox Creek did not come up as a concern, so it's not at 80%, which I talked about. That's the threshold for when you start looking at capacity concerns. The closest one we have for capacity concerns is Maryland City, which is at 70% capacity. So it wasn't one that, just to bring to your attention, Cox Creek wasn't in the immediate concern for capacity right now. And I think it's partly because you're looking at a 2022 report, which is the strategic plan is always overestimating so that we're not under capacity. That's part of the point of the plans.
Ms. Pickard.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you all for being here today. This is obviously a very important and somewhat emergency matter in regards to our economic vitality in the county. Can we go back and talk about I just want clarification on the one part, the Baltimore County line that is calculated at a different flow rate. How long has that been the mode of calculation? How long have we supposed to have been calculating at peak flow rather than average daily flow?
Apparently since the 1981 agreement.
Apparently,
That's in the agreement, it says our capacity for Baltimore County is based off of peak flow.
so how did we miss that in all of these 45 years of planning and development?
I wish I could tell you why in 1981 they didn't immediately, I wasn't here yet, but why they were not doing that, I don't know. But I think whatever methodology became the norm, which is normal, as I said earlier, average daily flow is how all the other agreements are. That's how our main agreement is with Baltimore City. Requiring it at peak flow is unusual. It got missed at some point along in the process. through our auditing that we did starting in 2023 of, looking at the regional pressures and what we were doing and what our capacities were going to be, a thorough review of that agreement revealed that it was peak flow. That's what our capacity was based off of. Even though we are billed and we are monthly reporting based off average daily flow. Baltimore City's never asked us for, hey, what's your peak flow at these, at our connection points. It's all been, every documentation, everything we send them has been on average daily flow.
Thank you. So it sounds like in going forward, that is one of the options to go back to this average daily flow and working with Baltimore County. Is that, I heard it from the county executive. I think you said it as well.
If not, I don't know that they're going to agree to average daily flow, but on some different peaking factor. Right now, like I said, it's 2.5. That's very high. Maybe we could agree on 1.5 or some other number that would free up some capacity. I don't think they're going to want to go to average daily flow because they have that concern for inflow and infiltration. However, having said that, we will be working with them and trying to see what we can do with them, what we can convince them to do and get an agreement on.
And who else is involved? What other agencies or levels of government are involved in that calculation or that mitigation strategy? Is that a state MDE, or is it just Baltimore County CAO and DPW director?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, it's MDE is not involved in the agreement. It's an agreement between the county and the Anne Arundel County and Baltimore County.
Okay. So, Madam Chair, may I continue? So I have I'm going to try to maintain my ADD here. So Anne Arundel County missed something along the way, clearly. In getting to this meeting we're having now, a week or so ago, the allotment committee sent out a press release indicating a moratorium. So for Mr. Swain, is an orange notice the legal mechanism for establishing a moratorium?
Good morning, Greg Swain, County Attorney. So the moratorium is a public notice to the public and to the property owners of that state of affairs. It really doesn't have any legal effect. So if you allowed each of those projects to go through the APF, Adequate Public Facilities test, they would all fail. So that's not the reason, or that's not because of the moratorium, it's because of the underlying facts. So the moratorium is really just the government declaration that this is the state of affairs. We're not going to be able to approve any of these for sewer allocations because there's no more capacity. That can be done by an orange notice. We did it, and actually there's a declaration from the allocation committee, which is the way it was done when the Mayo moratorium, which was 15 years or so ago, was instituted. But again, the whole purpose of the moratorium is to put the public on notice of that state of facts.
Okay, but I guess one of the concerns that I have about this whole last 7 days is this administration has prided itself on transparency and accountability, and we're in this new place where this body, as a co-equal body of government, was caught completely unawares after 7 years of zoning reform, comprehensive Plan 2040. We're at the last bit of region planning, and we've been making planning decisions and zoning decisions and economic critical corridor decisions, and a press release went out last week stopping all of that in its tracks. This situation we're in tears a hole through Plan 2040. And our economic vitality and the economic vitality of the state, which we all know is at stagnation. So I hope we are not here again, but I hope in future situations, whether they're sewer capacity issues or other issues, that the administration would respect this body as a co-governing body, not just 7 people that might get a little upset. I mean, I was told that because part of this is my district, that is not really the point. All 7 of us govern as the county council, and all of us, I'm sure, are, if not should be, very concerned about the state of affairs right now. So I'm not exactly sure that when you go through the charter and the code that the allotment committee could actually just put out a press release announcing this, but the Office of Law is saying that that is legal without some sort of declaration of emergency from the county executive or some other statement. But I'm not a lawyer, so make it make sense.
Well, I would say this, in the absence of the orange notice, in the absence of the press release, state of affairs would be exactly the same. None of these projects could get an allocation. So the driving force behind the announcement of the moratorium is the situation that DPW recently was made aware of, that there's no more capacity to be allocated at that pinch point. So the method could be any method. But even if nothing had been said, even if no announcement had been made, we'd be still in the exact same place.
I understand that. Madam Chair, if I may, I'd like to actually pivot to another, moving forward. Let's talk about how we're going to move forward. We've heard from the county executive that there are 2 child care centers caught up in this. So as a moratorium is put in place and we have projects that were caught completely unawares, they're moving towards the process, towards final approval. We have others that were teeing up to even submit approvals. How is the administration going to handle once capacity is brought back online? If we get some reallocation or we get to calculate differently, how are those projects going to be in the queue? Is it based on when they first applied? Is it based on where they are in the approval process? How are the folks in this audience who have invested thousands and hundreds of thousands of dollars towards the economic vitality of this part of the county, how are they to know what comes next?
Well, I would say this, I don't believe a decision has been made on how that would be managed. I know with the Mayo moratorium, it was based on chronology. Whoever, they looked at the applications that were pending and awarded or allocated based on the timeliness of that. I think there's discussion, well, I know there's discussions being undertaken in the Office of Law is looking at that as well as to the fairest method of making those allocations if and when capacity is available.
And how, when I heard that there is a task force, you're already working, is the private sector included in that task force? Are council members going to be asked to be a part of that task force, to be a part of this collaborative effort?
So at this time, we are just convening internal county staff to develop options. As I said at the very beginning, I regret how this was communicated. We would definitely do that better in the future. So before any change is made or large policy comes out of that work group, that would be discussed much more closely with the county council.
Is there any thought that, based on the fact that we got here at all, is there any thought that maybe outside subject matter experts might be necessary to help us find the mitigation possible to move this forward?
Sure. I feel like the staff that we have included, including Amy Gowan, who represents the business interests in economic vitality, bringing in development into the county, Jansen Evelyn, the DCAO for land use. We have good voices that understand the impacts on county government and the policies we make. But I take your point and I take your suggestion, and we'll figure out the best way to do that.
I appreciate that, but I was also actually referring to water sewer experts outside of the current DPW house.
That is not something I had thought of, but so thank you for that. We have available to us numerous consultants already in working on lots of things, including the diversion plan that we're looking at for Patuxent as well as Cox Creek, and then any other options that we might be able to develop in the next coming months. And then, as we talked about, we are still continuing those conversations with Baltimore City, Baltimore County to more quickly lift this while we still look at some of those other options.
Thank you. Ms. Ledbetter.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Would you mind going forward to slide 19, please?
Oh, sorry.
19. So going back to the annual review of the 80% capacity for existing, I think I wrote down that you had mentioned that there are 8 pumping stations at or above 80% capacity, and that all of those have a project in the CIP currently. Would you be able to, off the top of your head, and if you can't do it off the top of your head, maybe you could send it to us, what pumping stations those are? To Mr. Volke's point, and I think it's something that I would imagine all 7 of us and probably all of you at the table and the county executive share, we obviously do not want a problem like this anywhere else in our county. So I think it would be valuable for us on the council to know specifically what those projects are and where they are as we look towards planning the future.
I did bring the list with me, so just give me a second to,
Understand, you have a lot of papers there. Take your time.
I brought it with me. Okay.
No, it's on the, what's the name of your slideshow? I can just look it up real quick. It's in the notes of your slideshow. I just want to know what the name of it is. North County, okay.
Nope, I took them all. Oh, here it is. Okay, I have the list right here. I found it.
Oh, thank you.
Okay. Upgrades for pump stations. Maryland City Sewage Pumping Station, I mentioned that one. General's Highway, Cape Ann Sewage Pumping Station, Hillsmere 7, Annapolis Roads, Linthicum Shipley, Cape St. Clair 4, Cape St. Clair 8, Lurch Drive. And they're in either design or in construction. Well, Maryland City is in the flow projection study, which I mentioned. That's this project, looking at the whole service area.
And just to make sure that I'm understanding it all correctly, so these specific CIP projects are identified, this is where we're spending the money because they support the 8 pumping stations that are at or above 80%.
Correct.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Smith?
I'll try to be brief because I know you guys want to wrap up. When the federal government had the CR to shut down, we allocated $10 million to help with feeding and ensuring some of the services were going to continue to support families that were facing hard times. Is there any intent to leverage emergency funding to expedite pumping stations or other infrastructure needs currently in this year's budget, just like we did with the federal government shutdown? Can we expedite some of that now with emergency money, or is there discussions about that to help relieve the pressure on some of these areas that are impacted the most, primarily the ones, if you look at the 18 projects, and that's why I would prioritize, if you look at the 18 projects and you see where a cluster of them are, what service area or potential pumping station that could be leveraged to move some of that wastewater or wastewater over into our system. Has that been a discussion, or is that for this committee to undertake? And I know you said that 8 months we should have I don't know if maybe that should be expedited to 8 weeks, because 8 months seems like a extensively long time to make a determination on what other implications will come out of this. Is that possible?
So 8 months I'm answering your last question first, but 8 months is actually an expedited plan.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, plans can take 1 to 2 years, so it is expedited. But second thing is, I believe one of your questions was, have we considered emergency funding?
Yes.
So just understanding that the utility fund, which the sewer capacity is in, is a self-sustaining fund. We can't, without, there's something in the charter about how you don't mix the general funds with the enterprise funds. So we would not be able to very easily just use general funds in order to fix the problem. We have to look at our utility fund for that. And that is part of our, capital request for this year.
And I agree that in a normal stance that makes sense, but in unique instances like this, because these don't come along every year, this is probably once a 20-year occurrence. I certainly would be one, okay, what if it's an emergency, that we try to expedite it as quickly as possible, no matter what the funding source is. That's just my own, unless there's some illegal reason why we couldn't do it. As the fiscal authority for the county, I mean, this council will certainly have that opportunity to weigh in on it. But if it's a matter of resolving a significant, important piece of our economy and our sustainability of that, I think there might be exceptions built into how that process is. I saw your light come on. So
Yeah, I just want to say thank you for that question. Right now, we don't believe funding is the limiting issue in solving this, but I appreciate that if it is, we will certainly be in discussions with all of you about how best to mitigate that.
Understood. When it comes to the people who were impacted by this, is there any remediation? So if you spent, as was mentioned earlier, funding on the process, assuming that you're just going to get through, because unfortunately for us, sometimes going through the planning process can take months and/or years because of our process. And so you have entities that have sort of laid out these projects in the pipeline, assuming that it was, whether it's a year or 2 years, or eventually going to get to that process, to get to that allocation point. But because our process is lengthy, they wind up getting caught into this mix, and they've spent, as was mentioned earlier, in some cases, tens of thousands, if not millions of dollars getting to this point. What remediation, I don't know if that's even something we've ever done before, but have we considered how do we right size or right or wrong that potentially may cause harm to people who have chosen to have these developments in our area? Is there any consideration when it comes to that? And maybe the committee is.
Well, what we're focusing first is on expediting increased allocation capacity. So those are those conversations we're having with projects that have been allocated, are paying, but not yet connected. If we can free up some capacity that then allows some projects to go forward, this will be a very short delay for them. There are larger projects with larger numbers of EDUs that will probably, if we can't get that additional capacity from Baltimore County, they will be impacted. So I understand the question. We're just not quite at that point today because we are still trying to figure out ways to allow development to continue.
And maybe this is, are we under any legal, are there any legal implications to this? Could we be potentially sued because of the timeline on this? Are there legal exposures I think the county may be under?
Sure. Greg Swain, County Attorney. We distributed that memo last night about legal issues, and what we find is these types of moratoria that are supported by strong facts are generally upheld, and there's a number of cases in the state. There's even some Supreme Court law on that, but we're confident that it's legally protected. Not that it would prevent anybody from suing us, but we think we would have very valid defenses to any lawsuit.
And the last thing I'll ask is, are there any other dependencies? We know what our systems are capable of, not just on sewage and wastewater, but on other sort of activities. Is that review going to look at all dependencies that potentially could put us in this position from years from now, so that we can avoid it? So
I'll start with, we spent decades becoming independent from Baltimore City for our drinking water. As a matter of fact, we used to get 25% of our supply of water from Baltimore City. Now we actually sell water to them, a small amount, but that's how that works. That was planned out over 20 plus years in order to get to that point. I believe it was 2018 when we finally reached full independence from them. As far as, I don't think we'll ever be off of Baltimore City as far as the sewer capacity, but maybe we can lessen it and divert it like we talked about. We do have down here in the very bottom part of our county is Rosehaven, and we receive sewer service from Chesapeake Beach, Calvert County, and we have an agreement with them. That's where, that's one dependency there, which we meet with them monthly and talk about issues and work through things. As far as I know, no capacity issue there, where they also have a concern of I&I, and we had to prove to them that on our end, we were not sending them stormwater, we're only sending them sewage. So that we just recently went through that with them. The other, it's more that they're dependent on us, but we have a shared system with the city of Annapolis. The Anne Arundel County owns the wastewater treatment plant, and we have an agreement with them to provide them with wastewater treatment service, and that's a pretty in-depth agreement with them. but they're more reliant on us than the other way around.
Thank you.
Ms. Fiedler.
Thank you. I just have a question regarding the diversion that you mentioned that we had done that I think you said was 38 million.
Yes, so that was taking Piney Orchard wastewater treatment plant. It was more economical. So that treatment plant required a significant amount of upgrades to get it to proper environmental ENR standards, they call it. And it was cheaper for us to just spend the $38 million to move the sewage via pump station and piping to our Patuxent water reclamation facility. And that project was $38 million. In the mean, luckily, we had planned for that because Piney Orchard actually had a major explosion, an electrical explosion that pretty much knocked that plant out of service, and we were able to act quickly without any spilling or any violations happening. And luckily, because we already had that plan in place, and that was a pretty quick project for us because of that explosion. It was an urgent emergency situation.
Yeah, just to add, so we're in design for the permanent solution. Like Karen said, we have the temporary bypass in right now that we're sending down to Tux.
Okay, and just as a follow-up, that was the last diversion that we have done in the
Yes.
county. What
Yeah.
year was that?
That's this year.
Oh, that was
25,
this year.
25,
Okay.
yeah, and it's, yes. The other one was taking Mayo, and that's why Mayo went into a moratorium, but that, that was Mayo from Mayo to Annapolis Water Reclamation Facility.
Appreciate that. And I'm just trying to get an idea when you said it might be a little more expensive than the 38 million. If we were talking, we did that diversion 10 years ago, then it might be a lot more expensive, but I had forgotten that that had happened
Yeah.
in the last year, so thank you.
Yeah. Now, that only needed one pump station, so yeah. That's the only number I have, and I know when we estimate and we're way off, everyone gets frustrated, so I'm just throwing out a real number.
So as you're looking to do every possible thing to free up any capacity that may come, so I know right now when a new development comes in, they pay a one-time charge for their capital connection fees based on EDU usage, and we never look at that again. So
Right.
if they could be using far more than that, or they could be using far less, but we don't calculate. Is there, I know this is not normally done, but is there any thought of going back to some of these, especially the larger commercial properties, and looking at their actual EDU use, and if they're not using that amount, buying back from them or something to be able to allocate that to other new projects? We're right-sizing the EDU usage.
So we have a flow factor study that's underway right now. Phase 1 was completed. That was for mostly residential, but we looked at some restaurants and some other things, so adjustments have been made. The consultant has recommended a reconciliation process, not to give refunds, but to, if they are using more capacity than what they've been charged, and this would apply to commercial, not to residential. We already have a way of capturing overusage in the residential, but not to get too off track. But anyway, so they have recommended that. I've asked them to look further into that and provide more information. I do have the NIOP community, for example, have concerns because if you're a small business, and 3 years later you made it just enough money, you were able to acquire just enough money to get started and to connect. 3 years later, we're like, hey, you're using more water than you thought you were going to use, so now we're going to hit you with another big bill, and they may not have been fully optimizing their business and at a point where they're making profit. So, I do have concerns about the effect of that. We wouldn't be able to give refunds, and the reason for that is because we would have already built the capacity, so it's like we have the capacity, and we can't unbuild the capacity,
Right,
and we
right.
already invested that money into something, so we wouldn't have the ability to give back money.
If I can just add, Ms. Hummer, that strategy is something that would be a midterm strategy as I look at all the options, different things that we could do. In order to figure out if someone is using more or less than the capacity they paid for, you have to put a meter on it and you have to measure it over a fairly long period of time, usually a year, and sometimes longer to be able to look back. That's why I would call that a midterm strategy. We're trying to do other things first.
Okay.
And obviously, we would look at that. That is an option, including refunds or something if we needed to, in order to build back the capacity we needed.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Are there any other questions? from council members? So thank y'all very much. Mr. Smith, you have?
Is for your communication. I definitely want to be informed on everything that changes, because this is certainly a significant impact, at least to my area. So I definitely want to be informed so I can communicate that to the folks that are in my district as well.
Absolutely. Heard you loud and clear. Thank you.
Yes. So I appreciate the seriousness that everyone's taking to have this, and I echo what Mr. Smith said, that we would like to have regular updates for everything that's going on. I hope that we can, the state is realizing the seriousness of this, because this area that we're talking about is one of the top economic generators for the whole state, not just for our county, and that everyone will put pressure to bear where it needs to be to find something in the meantime. But I'm sure we will probably have further questions for y'all in the future, and so we'll be sending those on. But thank you for giving your time today.
Thank you.
And next, we are going to welcome Matt Fleming from the Resilience Authority. Good morning, Mr. Fleming.
Good morning. How are you guys? Thanks for making time. I appreciate it. I know you guys have a lot going on. I appreciate you guys making the time today. Kaylee, thanks again for setting this up. Yeah, I think it was our goal to try to meet with you guys annually. In addition, provide you our annual report, our impact reports. I'd love to get that feedback on how well the annual report's working, as far as kind of letting you guys know what we're up to and how we're doing. I think we actually may have missed last year. But I think when I met with you the first time, my promise to you guys was, I'm not here to program build. We're going to build off all the expertise that exists within the county, within the city, and that exists within, we have local organization, et cetera. But we did kind of set the vision for kind of 3 staff, so we're fully staffed up. I want to introduce them today. I cheated, because this is not just pulling anybody out. I think we have an extremely deep bench. I'll start with Gabe Cohey. So Gabe had 15 years, he's been at DNR, Maryland Department of Natural Resources. He oversaw the state's bay restoration programs. By the time he left, probably oversaw about $1 billion worth of investments in projects. And then Christina Alexander, she's a gift. She came to us through, she was one of the first governor's fellows that we were one of the first selected. She came to us, kind of a change of career. Prior to that, she worked in the Attorney General's office in Virginia and was a chief legal counsel for Sagamore Distillery. So you think from a legal background, a project management background, we got an incredibly deep bench. I'm certainly the weight on this group. So, all right, move. No, I have to cheat. Sorry. All right, so I'm not going to go through all this. We had a chance to kind of give you an overview of what we're doing. I did want to just quick note that while I'll be talking about the Resilience Authority and some of our projects here today, we're we're certainly, we're here to represent the county and the city. You know, our projects and our ability to hit the ground running, I think an example of the expertise that exists within both the city and the county, and also the partnership and the collaboration that we met from day one. Just kind of the willingness, you know, coming from the state, I think anytime there's something new, there's that immediate thought of, well, what can I lose from working with this new partner, this new organization? And I have to say, you know, to a person within this county, it's, you know, what they can gain through this new partnership. So again, while there's our logos all over this, I just want to let you know it reflects a lot of the expertise that exists. I don't need to go through the history. So just kind of an overview of this past year, and we're reporting on fiscal year 25. So this is dated back to basically the end of June this past year. So we're in our third year. So within 2025, we secured an additional $36.2 million in funding for projects. We have 13 new projects going, and the investments in those projects will avoid an estimated $68.2 million of impact. Again, running state programs and state grant programs, you know, Gabe and I used to always look at, you know, the quality of the project. Does the entity have the ability to do what they're saying? And the third one is, we don't want to see a project when it gets implemented get undone. So kind of the support from the city and the county. And I know sometimes it seems like it's just a goofy letter of support, but grantors look at letters of support from elected officials. And, you know, Councilwoman Ledbetter, your letter of support for the project in South County certainly helped us get that over the finish line. Councilwoman Rodvian with Jabez Branch, you continue to support there. And certainly Ms. Pickard with all your support in Glen Burnie. So a couple project highlights from this year. I won't go through all this. You guys have these slides, and I have a couple of them I'll pull out at the end, but you guys should have seen the good news on Annapolis City Dock. On Friday, we announced that we did get that $35 million FEMA grant, so that project is fully funded and moving forward. Next slide. So this is our impact to date. So this is where we are. We've secured an additional $50.3 million for city and county projects. We have 32 projects in the hopper, and again, the kind of avoided impact of $68.2 million in avoided impact. Again, that's back to June. Using Matt's math, we're probably closer to about 65, 70 million with grants that came in after the fiscal year, and we'll report those in future years. As we go through our project portfolio, just kind of, as you see, kind of the different buckets we work in, certainly protecting the places where we work, where we live, as well as public infrastructure. So I think parks and the roads we drive on, helping the city and the county make that transition to clean and renewable energy resources, and then certainly nature and the environment, ensuring that we have a clean and resilient ecosystems, since that is such our identity of our county. Okay. I'm not going to go through this in detail, and again, we have this in our annual report, but a couple of things I just wanted to highlight here real quick is one, you know, we sit between governments. We're not inside or above any agency, so we're a true partnership with the city and the county, also with the city and the county departments. One of the things that coming into this role, coming from my role at the state side, how much we're relied on as a solution provider. When we get into resilience, every project is unique. Every issue that a community is trying to address is unique. You know, the solutions are unique. So really trying to be that solutions provider for these local issues. Working with the city and the county, you know, one of the things that we talk about is, you know, as a force multiplier, you know, where we can provide support for some of these projects and fill the gaps to get a project over the finish line. And I got some examples of that. And the last thing I mentioned, kind of the built-in transparency measures. You know, in addition to coming to these annual, I'd love, and I know you guys are busy, but kind of report annually and how we're doing. I'd love your feedback. We try to provide that annual report each year, as well as the quarterly impact report. So any way to improve the way we report to you guys, you know, your feedback is welcome. And certainly I'm happy to meet you guys out for coffee, you know, talk to you about some of your priorities and projects in your area. Although I think the two folks I met most recently aren't running for office. I don't know if that's a good, or running for re-election. So I don't know if that's a good track record on my part. All right, so just here's a map. You see the projects we have going in Anne Arundel County. Those are current projects. West County, we got to work on, and now Councilwoman Hummer, now I know Fort Meade's in your district. So that project is moving. And we're hopefully, we've gotten good news that it looks like our application will be accepted and things will be able to kind of move forward on that military installation resilience review. And I can highlight that at the end. And these are the projects in the city. And then leadership and governance, again, you guys created us, so I don't have to go into too much detail. One of the things I did want to note here is one of the things I'd love to get your feedback on. I know I've had a chance to speak with the county executive. This was a recommendation of our board is, right now as it sits, all of our members are, you have 9 appointed by the county exec, 3 from the mayor of Annapolis, is the opportunity to look at maybe people outside of our region. I'm talking to some of the big donors, philanthropic organizations, and having them report to our board. Our board thought maybe a select number of folks kind of nationally provide some different perspective. Again, they would be appointed by the county exec and the mayor, but that was an idea that was supported by the board, supported by the county exec, but we wanted to wait with the new mayor coming in and then get your feedback on as well as the city council. So just noting that for maybe future discussion. Financial overview, I went through this earlier, and then just kind of the source of the funds. You can see, strategically, I think I mentioned the first time we met, really try to show proof of concept that we can get projects done and in the ground and bring dollars in. So we really hyper-focused on that grant portfolio. So you see, we're heavily biased. The funds we brought in are from federal, state, and local grants. You can see some of those other different investments going into projects, as well as we're looking at other opportunities for funding. All right, so project highlights. So I'm not gonna go into too much detail here because I know you guys have had a lot this morning. So I'm just gonna highlight some of the things where I think we've been unique, the structure in helping to get a project over the finish line. Jabez coastal floodplain rehabilitation. This was a large project in the queue for a long, long time. Very, it's an expensive project. It's a large ecosystem restoration project. I know we had Ms. Rodvian and Ms. Pickard down at the site. You can see the before and the after. The whole goal of this project was to reduce severe erosion dumping into the Severn River, as well as reconnecting the floodplain. I did want to show you this picture. So this was taken after the storms, February. So the area we restored, so Councilmember Smith, so that's where, so consider him, that's the part we restored. That feeds into the branch on the lower end. That ties back into the Jabez main branch. And just look at the difference in the amount of sediment coming down the stream. So, and what we did here is, there was a certain amount of water quality funding we were able to tap into. We were able to bring in some national resilience dollars to help this project pencil, and we were able to return back about $500,000 to the state. Chestnut Cove, Councilman Volke was instrumental here, helping us provide a letter of support. Again, protecting this this community and private infrastructure, as well as the BG&E power lines. You had a situation where you had this stream valley was unzipping. So we were able to do work on private property, as well as bring in federal dollars, focus on resilience, and then you see the before and after there. Cars Beach is a project that Gabe's leading, again, pulling off of his expertise around coastal restoration. You guys probably know the history around this site. If you don't, it's an amazing site here in Annapolis. You see kind of the existing conditions. What we're trying to do is, you see the future conditions there, is create a resilient park. What's unique here is, we're trying to, and again, Gabe expertise, restoring this resilient shoreline that actually kind of rebuilds the beach by itself as it starts capturing sediment moving up and down the bay, and then allow us to kind of create and celebrate the historic legacy of Cars and Elktonia Beach, as well as kind of the design of this. And we're really being aggressive with the permitters. And again, they're the permitting, the regulatory community, our partner in all of this. They've been working us hand in hand, but really trying to push the resilience lens. So trying to build a dunal system up to about 7 feet, building off of a 2080 sea level rise. So there's a lot of give and take with our regulatory community. They've been wonderful partners, but hopefully this project continues to move forward. As you know, we're working on the EV infrastructure project for this county, working on the 10 pilot sites. Just one of the kind of unique things we did here is we did a developer's contract. We wanted the private development community. We had maybe 13 firms from across the, some international firms come and submit applications and propose how they would help us achieve what we wanted to achieve here in the county. The folks at One Amoresco, so we're into this design build phase. We went through a whole exercise to basically optimize the charging infrastructure to meet fleet demand when we're getting cars in, as well as the a group called Mobility House to optimize charging based on fleet usage. So projected, we're based on kind of full build out using the Mobility House and optimizing charge based on when the county staff need the cars and will be using them. We should be able to save about $350,000 annually in utility savings. Edgewater Rec Center, we have a wonderful partnership with Department of Rec and Parks. I think I saw Erica Matthews here earlier today. She may have left. Oh, good. So she's hearing this. So we're working on a design build contract with them, and I think just our ability to quickly build off of all the expertise that exists with Department of Rec and Parks, and their goals to accommodate all the different input that they've had from the community and adjust that through the design and build phase to keep the project on track, as well as, again, supporting them with some of our expertise in the site improvements and looking at opportunities to do energy efficiency within the parking lot. Glen Burnie, this is one of the projects that one of the first we had the opportunity to kind of work on. This is one I know Gabe wants to see to completion. So again, using resilience as kind of the lens. You look at this town center. There's actually a great heat impact analysis. There's really no shade in the summertime. So trying to build with that resilience lens, how to create and activate a space that will help to reactivate this community, and that's what the future conditions are. And we're working on the design, and hopefully have that by the end of the winter and ready for permits, and then begin to raise funds around for the completion. This project here, again, I mentioned Councilwoman Ledbetter. You were instrumental in helping to get this project over the finish line. This is a great project. This project, this is something we were looking back when I was with Maryland Department of Natural Resources, and actually at the national level, I represented the state in the Coastal States Organization. Every coastal community is facing this issue where you have, where you want to maintain navigable waterways, but also you're having erosion, you're having community resilience issues. Anne Arundel County, and actually Melissa Sarlinsky with Department of Rec and Parks, Department of Public Works, Public Works, started this analysis several years ago where we thought the state, we were ahead of the game. Anne Arundel County was ahead of us. They did this assessment, they identified the opportunities, and we were able to bring an additional $1 million in of federal funding to support the work in the county. And what's unique about this project is in addition to protecting these communities through marsh creation and rebuilding some of the lost islands here, is we're using clean material from the waterways here. So ensuring that reducing the cost of trying to move material to dredge management sites, reducing the cost of materials to build these sites. So overall reduction in costs to both the state and the county, and building and basically using beneficial reuse of good clean fill. This would be a project I think will be something the county would like to promote and highlight at the national stage when it gets completed. I'm not going to go into this. The only thing here I want to say about NSA Annapolis, this happened actually before I started. This is called the Military Installation Readiness Review. It looks at opportunities for how to maintain the readiness of operations on a military base by doing projects outside of the base. So things like, I have them listed here, but things like access road flooding, certainly sea level rise issues with Naval Academy. And the point I wanted to emphasize this is the work that we did from this report and the data and information. We were able to tie in and identify opportunities and build off of that and bring in federal dollars to do more detailed planning in kind of that Edgewater community, where we identified the top 10 projects to reduce flooding impacts to the Edgewater Peninsula, Eastwater Peninsula. And then we're moving, again, trying to move those projects to fruition. And that same thinking is what we're trying to do with Fort Meade. Chairwoman Hummer is we're submitting this military installation readiness review for Fort Meade. You can see, you guys know the importance of Fort Meade to not only to Anne Arundel County, but to the region. And the goal of this project would be to assess critical shared systems that support both the installation and surrounding communities, help safeguard the operations of the base, kind of strengthen the interconnectedness between the county infrastructure and the base needs, and then where we fall in here is identify those actionable strategies. And then I am almost done because I was trying to get through here quick. So you guys had a long conversation beforehand. Just kind of looking forward. That's here, and the one I just wanted to pull out here is helping the city and the county with its regional solar and energy resilience strategy. We did get $6 million awarded to us through MEA. That just happened about 2 months ago. So that is something we'll be working with the city and the county on a long-term plan, as well as helping to bring solar generation to parking lots and county rooftops. That's it. Sorry, that was quick. I was trying to go through quick.
No, you did well. A question on the Fort Meade one. So you're doing this jointly with Fort Meade? Fort Meade is welcoming this partnership?
Yep. Okay. We have to do it, and Colonel Gore has to sign a letter of support, which he submitted. Okay. Everything's in. We're just waiting. We actually had everything in August, and then we had everything kind of get shut down and moved out. So we look like we're getting in for funding this year.
Okay, great. Thank you. Are there any other questions, comments? Ms. Pickard?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for being here. I think the council and administration efforts to support and create the Resilience Authority is one of the coolest things we've done in the last 7 years, and it's clear from this report that it was a very wise decision, especially with the impacts that we're seeing from the federal level. So thank you for this fantastic report. I look forward to the successful earmark, working with Congresswoman Elfwith for Glen Burnie Town Center and beyond. I just wanted to understand what you just said, the $6 million for solar. If you could just, I know we have a lot to do today, but I just wonder if you could expand on that a little bit. I will say, for those of you who may not realize this, I see we have school system folks, and 6 of our brand new schools that were built silver capacity are getting solar panels. I'm watching solar panels go up on Severn Run right now. It's super exciting. Those were decisions that the school system and the county partnered on to make those our new school buildings. So where we can do that in the county is also, it's a little different when you're retrofitting compared to building new. So I hope as we build new county facilities, that we're doing what the school system did and making sure that those buildings are ready to receive solar. But are y'all able to speak on the Glen Burnie landfill project, or is that not through you guys?
Yeah, not through us. It's probably best for a combination of central services and the energy manager there.
We let them go. Oh, well.
I'd be happy to follow up.
Yeah, it's built. It's just not connected yet. So I'm just waiting with bated breath to be able to cut that ribbon. So, but can you talk about the $6 million real quick?
Yeah, so we got, and again, this was just awarded, so we're working through the details. Part of it is for energy efficiency upgrades with some of the existing county facilities, and to look at establishing direct generation opportunities within the county. And we've hyper-focused, again, working with the energy manager within central services, and of course the different facility managers looking at parking lots as kind of our primary opportunity. And then again, where we can partner with schools and opportunities there, I do think there's a way that we can use this initial seed funding for solar to look back at this point in time where we can see this solar generation kind of taken off.
And I will say, the Glen Burnie Town Center, I love the fact that we're looking at a heat island there and a way to do that. And my district doesn't have a ton of water. Well, we have plenty of water, but we don't have the waterfront and the things that are there. But I'd love, a review to see where we have some heat islands, where we could improve some areas, because I think that's an important thing that gets overlooked sometimes as we concentrate necessarily on our water issues.
Sure, absolutely. And I would love to, between the 3 of us, come out and meet with you and talk about some opportunities there.
Great. All right. Thank you very much. We appreciate you coming.
Thank you.
All right. Now we will welcome Lewis Duncan, our Executive Manager of our Audit Office, and his team there to discuss our our annual external audit and the FY27 budget process.
Thank you. Thanks, Kaylee. Good morning, everybody. Chairwoman Hummer, council members. Louis Duncan Jr., Executive Manager, Office of the County Auditor. I have with me Charles DK, Acting Audit Director. We're going to start today by presenting our budget overview, essentially the methodology with which we plan to execute our budget review for the fiscal year 2027. And with that, I will turn it over to Mr. DK.
Thank you, Louis. Council, thank you again for fitting us into your schedule. I know it's very packed, and we're going to briefly go over the respective roles of the council and the auditor's office in the budget process, the methodology used to review the proposed budget, both operating and capital, and the types of findings and recommendations the council can expect from our office. Once the proposed budget is submitted on May 1st, the council begins the formal review process under the county charter. The council is responsible for adopting the annual budget and appropriation ordinance by June 15th. The council must hold 2 public hearings before the adoption of the ultimately set the tax rates necessary to balance the budget. In terms of authority, the council may decrease and delete budget line items, but cannot increase expenditures proposed by the county executive, with the exception for the Board of Education. However, the council may attach conditions to appropriations, such as requiring reports or additional information before funds can be spent. We provide an example of those conditions. Funds appropriated for X shall be made available for expenditure when the department submits a report to the council detailing so on. The Office of the County Auditor provides independent legislative oversight and analysis during the process. After the proposed budget is submitted, the office reviews both operating and capital budgets to identify unsupported, unsubstantiated budget increases, calculation errors or inconsistencies, compliance concerns, and other issues that may warrant council's attention. Following our review, we will present a formal recommendation to the council in late May. However, our recommendations remain advisory. The council ultimately determines whether to implement the proposed amendments. Regarding our methodology, our budget review is based on several analytical steps. First, we conduct a fluctuation analysis, comparing FY27 budget to the proposed FY27 budget to the FY26 approved budget, where we will identify significant changes. We follow up with the administration to understand the justifications. Secondly, we will perform recalculations to verify formulas and cost projections to support major budget fluctuations. Third, we will review compliance issues and ongoing concerns, including expenditures or revenues subject to legal requirements or policy restrictions. This approach helps the council receive objective and risk-focused reviews for the proposed budget. Our findings and recommendations. Through our review process, the office will support the council in several ways. We will produce departmental budget briefings, highlight major changes within proposed budget, and identify preliminary findings. These findings may include budget increases that lack sufficient supporting documentation, calculation errors, or compliance concerns that may require the council's attention. We're leveraging Tableau to create visual dashboards that we can also provide with our budget briefings that we can provide an example to staff after this afternoon. And in closing, the objective is to provide the council with clear, independent, and timely analysis to support informed decision-making before the June 15th budget adoption. Thank you, and with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any Questions or comments from everyone? You feeling good about it going into budget season? Everybody? Mr. Volkey, I can't believe you don't have a comment. Okay, all right. So, all right, thank you very much. I think we're all ready to, it's already getting geared up, so.
Thank you. Oh, there it is on. I was just going to say thank you, Charles. Good job. In addition to this, we've also been socializing this message with folks at the county level and executive side. We've met with Ethan as well as Chris in order to explain to them our methodology going forward, just because it may be different than what they've been used to in the past. And everyone's on board and willing to help us out.
I'd add some things that we're considering different from prior years of doing, meeting with departments for on-site visits to understand their operation, and even cherry picking a few capital projects to see their status and understand the costs associated with those as well.
Ms. Fiedler.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Is it possible to get a preview of the Tableau dashboard? Okay, I use it daily in my professional job, so I'm really excited to see how it's going to be utilized for budget.
I was going to say, oddly enough, we were going to demonstrate it in this presentation. However, let's just keep it a little brief.
Yep.
You guys have a long day ahead of you guys. But we will come back up here and try to maybe socialize that with the council members. I don't know if it'll be one-on-one, but maybe some tutorial sessions, because it's not as familiar a tool to everyone. It's good that you've got some vast use in it, Councilwoman.
Yep.
All right.
And with that, we'll like to call up SC&H representatives, if they don't mind to join us up here at the table. All right. Joining us are Angela Lynch, Director for SC&H, and Caitlin Williams, Senior Manager for SC&H, and they're going to present on the 2025 ACFA results. I'll give them a couple minutes to set up and jump right into it.
Good morning. I'm Angela Lynch. I'm the audit partner from SC&H Group, and with me today is Caitlin Williams, Audit Senior Manager. We appreciate the opportunity to be here today to present the results of our audit of the Anne Arundel County financial statements for the year ended June 30th, 2025. Our audit was conducted in accordance with government auditing standards and generally accepted auditing standards. We issued an unmodified, clean opinion on the county's financial statements, which is the highest level of assurance we can provide and means that the financial statements are fairly presented in all material respects in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. This reflects positively on management's financial reporting processes and the county's overall control environment. We also coordinated with other auditors for certain component units, and our opinion incorporates their work. On this executive summary slide, at year end, the county's total net position was approximately $1.66 billion. As is typical for local governments, the majority of that net position is invested in capital assets such as infrastructure and facilities. The unrestricted balance reflects the impact of long-term obligations like pensions, OPEB, and debt, rather than short-term liquidity concerns. From a revenue perspective, revenues increased year over year, primarily due to a change in the local income tax estimate methodology. Property taxes and transfer and recordation taxes also increased. From an audit standpoint, we had no disagreements with management, and there were no scope limitations placed on our work. Our report was issued on January 30th, 2026. An extension was requested due to transition-related timing challenges. However, we were not restricted in our procedures, and this did not affect our ability to issue a clean opinion. As noted in the presentation, we identified 5 control deficiencies and 3 other matters during our audit. Importantly, none rose to the level of a material weakness or significant deficiency, and none impacted our audit opinion. These items represent opportunities to strengthen documentation, formalize certain processes and policies. I'll walk through those in more detail shortly. Overall, the county received a clean audit opinion with no material weaknesses identified. We appreciate the cooperation of management and the staff throughout the audit process. I'll turn to Caitlin for a financial overview.
So for just a high-level overview of the 2025 statements, again, there was a clean opinion. In the current year, we had, the county had implemented GASB 101, which is a government accounting standard that just provides some updated guidance on accounting for compensated absences. So as a result of this, our opinion does include an emphasis of matter paragraph, and the financial statements include a restatement of the 2024 net position and the other figures that are associated with the compensated balances. But the impact of the restatement is disclosed in Note 1N, and it doesn't have an impact on the financial statements. And then additionally, there were no changes in the funds that are designated as major funds presented within the financial statements. And just a high-level overview of the government-wide net position. So the government-wide net position is at, as of 6/30/2025, is at $1.662 billion. Of that amount, the governmental activities represent $388.8 million, and the business type activities, so the solid waste and utilities, represent the about almost $1.3 billion. That net position can also be broken down into restricted, unrestricted, and the net investment in capital assets. So the restricted assets are restricted for specific uses, typically legal restrictions on those assets. Those are about $107.16 million. The net investment in capital assets is $1.62 billion, and then the unrestricted assets, as a result of the other two buckets of the net position, is a negative $674 million. So that represents the portion of the net position that is not legally restricted, and it can be negative, and in this case, it's primarily negative due to long-term obligations, such as the pension liabilities and OPEB liabilities, and also the debt held by the county. So these obligations exceed the current unrestricted resources of the county. This isn't unusual for governments, and typically because these obligations are recorded up front, but the funding for them occurs over time, you do see that negative unrestricted net position. Next, we just wanted to touch on a couple trends with the revenue and expenditures. So the revenues increased primarily due to the local income taxes. As Angela mentioned, there was a change in the methodology used to calculate this in the current year. There was just some more information that provided a better holistic picture of the revenue related to the local income taxes, resulting in that increase. The increase is really only noticeable in the government-wide financial statements. If you look at the general fund financial statements year to year, it's not as pronounced, and that's because the government-wide is on an accrual basis, while the general fund is on a modified accrual basis. And then, as Ange mentioned, the property taxes and transfer and recordation taxes also increased due to higher assessed values for the property tax side and higher rates, and then also the transfer and recordation taxes were driven really by there was an increase in transaction volume and higher consideration amounts of the transactions. So then for the expense side of things, the county's largest functional expense categories continue to be education, public safety, and then just general government. So there weren't really any large swings in the expense side that we saw. So I will pass it to Ange to talk about the audit findings.
So in addition to our independent auditor's report and the unmodified opinion, we are also required to communicate certain matters related to internal controls and operational processes. As outlined in our management advisory comments letter, which is also dated January 30th, 2026, we did not identify any material weaknesses in internal control. That is an important point. A material weakness would indicate a reasonable possibility that a material misstatement of the financial statements would not have been prevented or detected in a timely manner. We did not identify any such issues or concerns. The comments included in this letter are recommendations intended to strengthen internal controls, enhance documentation, and improve operational efficiency. They do not affect our audit opinion. I'll briefly summarize the key areas. First, related to the implementation of GASB Statement Number 101 on compensated absences, we noted that the library's sick leave balances were not initially included in the county's comprehensive analysis. Management evaluated the impact and determined it was not material. And going forward, the library will be incorporated in the calculations to ensure full and consistent application of the standard. Second, we recommended formalizing a written policy for when capital projects are transferred from construction in progress to placed in service status. While the county has procedures in practice, documenting the policy will help ensure depreciation begins timely and consistently across departments. Management is currently drafting the formal policy. Third, we provided a recommendation regarding the methodology used to estimate the local income tax receivable. The county currently uses a 3-year historical period in its calculation. We suggested evaluating whether incorporating a longer data set could improve precision and stability. Management indicated that the 3-year approach was selected intentionally as a conservative methodology and will continue to monitor and test the estimate against actual results. Fourth, in the health insurance fund, we recommended periodically reviewing the percentage applied to the actuarial unpaid claims estimate. The county currently reserves 75% of the actuarial estimate. While this approach has been consistently applied, the percentage has not been formally reassessed in recent years. Management has accepted the recommendation and will conduct additional analysis to ensure the reserve remains appropriate. Then within the water and wastewater fund, we recommended strengthening documentation supporting outstanding connection unit receivables and ensuring appropriate classification of any developer prepayments as unearned revenue where applicable. There was no indication of loss or misstatement identified, but improved documentation will enhance support and audit efficiency going forward. We've been informed that Finance and Public Works have already begun coordinating improvements in this area. So in addition to those control-related comments, we included several other operational recommendations. We noted opportunities to strengthen accounts payable reconciliation procedures to eliminate debit balances caused by system offsetting issues. We recommended a technical reclassification within the installment purchase agreements fund related to zero coupon investments. That item has already been corrected in fiscal year 26. And finally, we observed that a significant portion of reconciliation work was completed late in the audit cycle, which compressed the timeline for both the audit and ACFR review. We recommended exploring earlier pre-close procedures. Management has accepted this recommendation and anticipates that the financial system upgrade will improve efficiency in future years. Overall, these comments represent opportunities for process enhancement and documentation strengthening. None rise to the level of a significant deficiency or a material weakness, and none impacted our audit opinion. We appreciate the cooperation and responsiveness of management throughout the audit process. And I will turn it back to Caitlin to go through our required communications letter.
I'm just going to walk through a couple of our required post-audit communications. These are summarized also in the post-audit letter, which we had asked Charles to circulate, so hopefully you have a copy of that. I have a couple hard copies if anyone really wants one. So, as we've mentioned, we had an unmodified opinion that was dated January 30th, 2026. The accounting policies are the responsibility of management, and management is responsible for selecting appropriate accounting policies. As we described in Note 1N, the county adopted GASB 101 in the current year, and we noted no transactions lacking authoritative guidance or consensus, and all significant transactions were recognized in the appropriate period. Accounting estimates are integral to the financial statements and are based on management's knowledge and assumptions about past, current, and future events. The most sensitive estimates in the statements include the OPEB and pension liabilities, compensated absences, the liability for the landfill closure and post-closure, and then the useful lives of capital assets. Certain disclosures are sensitive due to their significance. These types of disclosures consist of the related party transactions, which are noted in Note 7, encumbrances in Note 9K, the contingent liabilities in 18B, and then the bonded debt and other obligations, which are noted in Note 8, and then finally the governmental fund balance noted in Note 11 of the financial statements. We had no disagreements with management, and we encountered no scope limitations. And then aside from that, as we mentioned, there were some delays in the timing. These were just particularly due to the timing of when the transition happened to us as the auditor, and then just some standardization of our documentation compared to how things were done by the prior auditors. So these are not unusual things to encounter in a first-year audit. And so, as we noted, the county requested an extension, and then we have already begun to discuss opportunities for process improvements with the county team and are expecting a more efficient timeline for the next audit cycle.
Wraps up our presentation for the ACFR audit.
Thanks, Caitlin. Thanks, Angela. No additional comments from myself. Charles?
No.
No. Any questions?
Thank you. Going to the finding about local income tax receivable, so you said that the county has historically used the 3-year because that's more conservative. Do you see other jurisdictions doing something different? And if so, what do you see?
3 years is a good usage as long as you're testing it for actual, against actual.
I guess I'm just trying to figure out, are there other jurisdictions that you've audited that are looking at 5 years or some longer run or something like that?
There
What-
are sometimes.
What else do you see?
Sorry. There are sometimes a sensitivity analysis to be done where you can look at 5 or 10 years, and then sometimes it's determined that they would change that estimate on a go-forward basis.
Are there any other questions or comments? All right, thank you all very much. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
We will now move forward to legislation. Our first bill up is Bill number 1226. This is capital budget, Board of Education. Slip on it. And we thank you, school board people, school system people, for being here, for sticking it out all this time. Yes. Yes, Ms. Pickard.
I believe that we have 2 items that relate to school board. Can we just put them together?
Yes.
I don't know if the school system stays here for the school utilization chart or no.
Yeah, we can just do both at the same time. Thank you. Keep them up here and then let them go back to their day layer. All right. Mr. Hunt.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ethan Hunt for the administration. With me, I have Bill Heiser, the Chief Operating Officer for Anne Arundel County Public Schools, Jeff Hagan, the Executive Director of Facilities, and Lori Blair Klossmeyer, Deputy County Attorney. Bill 1226, introduced on behalf of the Budget Office at the request of the administration, proposes amendments to the capital budget and program for FY26. It amends the capital budget for the current fiscal year by making supplementary appropriations to the Board of Education security-related upgrades and upgrades various school capital projects. These appropriations are necessary as a result of $1,229,600 from sources that were anticipated in the budget but in excess of those estimates, or from sources that were not anticipated in the budget for the current fiscal year. Specifically, the Maryland Center for School Safety has provided a facility mapping grant of $245,743. The School Safety Grant Program has provided $744,984,000 for a secure vestibule at Severna Park Elementary School, and $238,873 in miscellaneous funds include contractor recoveries, donations, and school payments. Of that amount, $23,373 is for the marquee sign at Arundel High School, $50,000 is for the Indian Creek Marsh Boardwalk Rebuild Project at Arlington Echo Outdoor Education Center, and $165,500 is for gymnasium upgrades at Central Middle School. Happy to answer any questions. I will note the Planning Advisory Board did review these at its January 28, 2026 meeting.
All right. Are there any questions or comments? No. All right. We're good with it. Or at least no questions today. So how about let's tackle Bill number 1626, School Adequate Public Facilities Chart, School Utilization Chart.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Same group at the table with the addition of Lynn Miller, our Assistant Planning and Zoning Officer. So Bill 1626 is the adoption of the annual school utilization chart. This incorporates the latest projections from the 2025 Education Facilities Master Plan and the most current school enrollment numbers for the fall of 2025. Happy to answer any questions, and the chart is attached.
Ms. Pickard.
I just wanted to ask if, I did hear what Mr. Hunt just said, but does this chart take into consideration redistricting?
Thank you, Ms. Pickard. No, it doesn't. This does not incorporate the redistricting, which will go into effect, will be included obviously in the 2026 EFMP, and does not include the 26 school year 26 projections. It lags. This data lags.
Yeah, and seems like I'm always wanting to adapt the chart that we can see, that this is a public document, and it would be great if, hopefully we're not redistricting anytime soon, but if there was that added column about, because it's going to look funny. If anybody in the public is actually looking at it without that shift that was made, when we did. So I assume phase 1 redistricting has been incorporated since that was last year, and that has already been executed.
Students will move this coming year, so it'll be executed in the coming school year. Decisions have been made, but students will move. And we'll know that in the enrollments.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you.
All right, are there any other questions or comments? All right. You're done. Go back to your day job. That's it. All right, next up, Bill number 1326. This is Fire Prevention Code amendments. So, welcome back to our fire marshal.
Ethan Hunt again for the administration. Joining me are Captain Donna McGuire from the Fire Marshal's Office and Andrew McCara, our Assistant Director of Department of Inspections and Permits, the Assistant Director of Planning, Review, and Inspections. So this legislation updates the fire code. It updates the Anne Arundel County Fire Prevention Code by adopting the 2024 NFPA 1 and NFPA 101. That stands for National Fire Protection Association. Current Anne Arundel County Fire Prevention Code adopted the 2018 editions of NFPA 1 and NFPA 101, so now we're 2 cycles behind. This legislation addresses the need to maintain alignment with the most current nationally recognized fire and life safety standards and reflect technological advancements and ensure consistency with the Maryland State Fire Prevention Code. Adopting the 2024 editions will ensure the county's requirements remain relevant to current construction methods, emerging technologies, and public safety needs. Intended outcome of this is to maintain consistency with the Maryland State Fire Prevention Code and current National Fire Protection Association standards, enhancing public and firefighter safety through adoption of the latest life safety requirements, addressing new technologies and materials such as energy storage systems and photovoltaic installations, streamlining enforcement by repealing obsolete local amendments and aligning definitions and administrative provisions with state standards, and providing clear guidance for plan review, inspection, and enforcement activities conducted by the Office of the Fire Marshal. I can turn it over to the folks at the table if they have anything they would like to add, and we're happy to answer any questions.
Ms. Pickard.
Sorry.
So something you just came up, so you said that we're 2 cycles behind in doing this. Why is that the case? Why haven't we upgraded before now?
Don McGuire, Fire Marshal for the county. So the state of Maryland did not adopt the 2021 NFPA 1 and 101. They skipped a year. They skipped a cycle, I should say.
And so we don't upgrade ours until the state does theirs.
That's correct.
Okay. Interesting. All right. Any other questions or comments? All right. That's it. Thank you for coming out. Bill number 1426. This is acquisition of real property by gift. Mr. Hunt.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ethan Hunt again for the administration. Joining me are Lori Blair Klossmeyer, our Deputy County Attorney, and Erica Matthews, our Deputy Director for the Department of Recreation and Parks. So this legislation approves the acceptance of a gift of real property, which is known as Eagle Hill. It totals 240.77 acres in Pasadena. It's from the Looper Estate for conservation and recreational purposes. Legislation, as you know, is required to accept a gift, and the fair market value of the property to be acquired was established by a real estate appraisal that the county obtained, and the fair market value would be $5,300,000. These parcels are located adjacent to the Magathy Greenway Natural Area. The property is located at the North Shore Road and 263 Eagle Hill Road. This property would be a gift from the Looper Estate Revocable Trust, which states that the property shall be distributed to the Maryland Environmental Trust with the intention that the property be used for recreation purposes. MET and the Magathy River Land Trust shall be parties to a conservation easement, which will be placed on the property, and the county will ultimately be gifted the land from the Maryland Environmental Trust. So we do not have to provide any funding to the landowners as part of this transaction. The benefits of this gift are to expand the Magathy Greenway to further align the goals of the Green Infrastructure Plan. These parcels are already included in green infrastructure mapping. It will conserve the 240 acres of land. Notably, this property is listed already on the Scenic Rivers Land Trust Top 100 properties to acquire for land preservation because of the environmental features present on the site. It will expand recreational parkland to further the 2022 Land Preservation Parks and Recreation Plan, which has a stated goal of acquiring 500 additional acres for parkland and open space throughout the county, and will create additional public water access on the Magathy River. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions or comments, Mr. Volkey?
Yeah, I just need to disclose I am a board member of the Maryland Environmental Trust. So when the vote happened on September the 8th, 2025, to approve this, I was on the board at that time. So just disclosing that so it's publicly known. It's in my district, and I think this is a great acquisition. Thanks.
Any further questions, comments? Nothing? All right. It is a nice gift. Yeah. It's, so. Right, we love gifts. We love gifts, right. So, thank you. All right. Next up is Bill 1526, outdoor lighting. Ms. Fiedler, this is your bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This bill came as a result of years of various complaints from residents who have read the code and thought that the code would give the county enforcement opportunities if they live next to a non-residential structure or property, when in reality, what is written in the code as far as fixtures not being visible at any point along the boundary in a non-residential zoning district, all of those provisions are for planning and zoning to allocate lesser setbacks. It's actually, those are not actually enforcement provisions. So this bill proposes adding provisions that we see in the residential zoning districts with regards to lighting to non-residential districts that abut residential properties. That's it.
Okay. All right. Is there anything planning and zoning would like to add? Did she explain that well? All right. Any questions or comments? All right. I think that's it for that one. Thank you. Next, bill number 1726, Region 5. And this is also bill number 1826. Both of these are part of comprehensive rezoning for Region 5.
All right, Ethan Hunt for the administration. Joining me are Christina Pompa, our Deputy Planning and Zoning Officer, Mark Wildonger, our Senior Planner, and Sam Myers, our Planner from the Office of Planning and Zoning, and Kelly Kenny from the Office of Law. So bills 1726 and 1826 are the last of the 9 region plans for the county. When we complete this, we will have comprehensively rezoned all of Anne Arundel County. So this these two bills are for the adoption of the region plan and comprehensive rezoning of Region 5, which covers Odenton, Piney Orchard, Gambrills, Woodwardville, Crofton, and Two Rivers. And I'm going to turn it over to the OPZ team to quickly walk through their presentation.
Christina Pompa with the Office of Planning and Zoning. As you know, we usually have a lengthy presentation. We're going to cut it a little bit for you today because we know you've had a long day. However, we're still going to ask for the entire presentation to go up on the web for you. We'll really focus on what are you going to see in this region plan and what are the zoning requests where there was difference of opinion between the Stakeholder Advisory Committee, the Planning Advisory Board, the Office of Planning and Zoning, and or where we got a lot of testimony from the public. And I'll turn it over to Mark Wildonger.
Good morning, Mark Wildonger, Office of Planning and Zoning. So again, we're going to just jump right in. And again, we'll catch everybody up from the public on some of the context for Plan 2040 and this region planning process that we'll post up on the website. So as part of this region planning process, we did quite a bit of public outreach. Here are some of the highlights from that public outreach, or the or the themes that we had heard from individuals. Again, I don't think a lot of this is necessarily new or unique to Region 5 or new to everybody tuning in here. But again, just hitting on some of the highlights, the Region 5 community looks to restore quality and quantity of environmental resources. Traffic is a big issue, making sure that there's affordable housing, and that new development actually has amenities, making sure that there are pools or other type of recreational amenities built into that private development. There's an interest in mixed-use development, primarily in the Odenton Town Center area, making sure that people can connect to other areas within Region 5 and outside of Region 5 without using a vehicle, using, say, bicycle, or providing pedestrian amenities, and making sure that public transportation can adequately connect people, again, to not only local points of interest, but also regional points of interest. There is also a need for community facilities, and as well as looking at the healthy economy or economic development, making sure that there's still a focus on supporting local and small and diverse businesses. So the Region 5 vision, again, this is one of those aspects of the plan. It's an important part of the plan as it describes what the community aspires to become. The Office of Planning and Zoning shared feedback from a visioning questionnaire and other means with the Stakeholder Advisory Committee, who then developed the following vision statement. So again, some major themes from this statement. I won't necessarily read it, but making sure that as this area grows, that it grows responsibly, and ensuring that there are opportunities for all. Another chapter of the Region 5 plan is the existing conditions section. This provides an overview of the region with relevant data on the population and households. It also includes community descriptions that narratively describe each of the region's communities, including existing development patterns, major assets, and character-defining qualities and broad strengths and needs. We have also included a recommendation for adjusting the Region 5 boundary for future planning efforts, and this is described in that section. The region plan format is similar to that of Plan 2040, where we review the existing conditions, challenges, and opportunities in 4 chapters, that being the natural environment, the built environment, healthy communities, and the healthy economy. The strategies I'm highlighting here and over the next few slides look to address the issues or what we've heard and focus on. So making sure that we protect the Jabez branch and other green areas, manage stormwater effectively and efficiently, and working with the federal government to maintain agricultural uses at the dairy farm. Moving on to the built environment, the county will be looking to address greater flexibility for accessory dwelling units, ensuring safer neighborhood roads, managing traffic along Maryland 3, making public transit more accessible, and creating more and safer bicycle and pedestrian facilities. So the built environment section also includes a look at the holding capacity, which assesses the capacity of our existing adopted zoning to accommodate projected population growth in the region. The holding capacity analysis is a factor in developing the draft zoning map. I'll quickly review the results here for Region 5. The analysis shows that in Region 5, there is not currently enough development or redevelopment potential within existing zoning districts in the region to accommodate the region's projected growth over the planning horizon. However, the Odenton Town Center, which is located in Region 5, is a target growth area that should be able to accommodate most of the deficit in Region 5. The state has recently selected a developer for the western surface parking lot at the Odenton MARC station, redeveloping areas in close proximity to the MARC station with the intent that residents utilize public transportation more than their vehicles should help reduce local and regional traffic. Moving on to the Healthy Communities chapter, again, looking at the need for additional community facilities like an aquatic center, an intergenerational center, and an arts center. Seeing if there is an opportunity to utilize land at libraries for public uses, so outside of the actual structure itself, if there is additional land surrounding the library, if there's an opportunity to program that. Facilities for water access along the Patuxent River, and making more bicycle and pedestrian connections, again, to these points of interest using the regional trail systems. And lastly, the Healthy Economy chapter looks at investing in the Odenton Town Center and revitalizing aging and underutilized commercial sites like the Crofton Village Green. So this table outlines the changes in acres in the adopted and proposed zoning. I'll review these quickly and then I'll hand it off to Sam Myers, who will highlight some of the specific zoning recommendations in Region 5. So just as a quick refresher, in the left-hand columns under zoned are residentially zoned areas with the numbers indicating the levels of intensity. SB is our small business zoning district. C is our commercial zoning districts, again, with different densities and intensities. OTC are our Odenton Town Center zoning districts. W is our industrial zoning districts, and OS is open space. So again, just to highlight some of the changes here where there is some significant change are RA, RLD, R2, and R5. The loss in acreage there is likely due to the steep gain in open space. Again, we can link the presentation from previous planning efforts where we discussed what the county's policy has been for open space zoning. The increase in R10 is the result of right-sizing the zoning to the built conditions, usually based on townhome communities. The loss in R15 is associated with the gain in R10, so typically, there's limited amount of land here, so there are going to be these trade-offs in how the land is then zoned. MXDG and N are consistency and comprehensive zoning changes along the Maryland 3 corridor. And the increase in W3 is to align the zoning districts to entire parcels, since we don't typically want to have split zone parcels. And these increases in W3 are in the Gambrels and Woodwardville area. And open space, again, is the increase as a result of the county's policy to zone a parcel OS if it is a dedicated floodplain, open space, and conservation area, mainly based on the consistency changes and property owner applications. So with that, I'll hand it off to Sam Myers, who will go through some specific zoning recommendations in Region 5.
Yes, so I'll be presenting mapping recommendations and comprehensive zoning applications where OPZ had received a significant amount of public feedback, or there's a difference of opinion between OPZ, SAC, or PAB mapping recommendations. Starting with the Crofton community, the community generally contains the Crofton Triangle, the southern section of Maryland 3, residential sections south of Maryland 3, and the Crofton High School. The first mapping example we'll look into is DPA R5 CFT 100. This is a development policy recommendation that includes properties that are located along Maryland 3 North Lane, Queen Mitchell Road, Lee Street, and Carver Road with no access from the residential areas to the southeast and are within Council District 7. OPZ, SAC, and PAB are recommending a change from Neighborhood Preservation Development Policy Area to Critical Corridor Development Policy Area because there's no access to the access to Maryland 3, and to provide an opportunity for these parcels to be further reviewed in future Maryland 3 corridor studies. Existing uses that are found here are a mix of residential and commercial. Next area we'll be moving to is the Gambrels community. The community contains the northern section of Maryland 3, Wall Chapel commercial development, the U.S. Dairy Farm, and the southern section of Region 5, and parts of the Four Seasons residential community. The first comprehensive zoning application we're going to discuss is CZ R5 GAM 0005 and is located at 754 Annapolis Road. The property is currently improved with a single-family dwelling and is located in District 3. The parcel is located near the northern end of Maryland 3. The property owner requested the property be rezoned from RLD residential low density to either R1 or R2 to be able to subdivide the parcel into buildable lots. OPZ is recommending the property retain the adopted RLD zoning because RLD is consistent with the adopted rural plan land use and the existing residential use. The PAB is also recommending RLD zoning, while the SAC is recommending R1 zoning to help facilitate the owner's desire to subdivide the parcel. The next applications we'll discuss are CZ R5 GAM 006, 0008, 0011, 0012. These are 4 different applications, but are all very similar. They're all located on the southbound side of Maryland 3 between Wall Chapel Road and Annapolis Road, and back up to the U.S. Dairy Farm and the B. Genie substation, and are located in Council District 3. The existing uses are the Nighthawk Golf Center, the Regency Assisted Living Facility, and other existing residential and commercial uses. While there are some residential zoning, the majority is commercial. The property owners had requested either MXDN or MXDX zoning to permit a mix of commercial and residential uses. OPZ is recommending a mixed-use development policy area overlay and MXDN zoning, which is the middle-level MXD zone and allows 15 residential units per acre. As you know, the county's commercial zoning districts do permit residential uses. This change would result in a slightly lower residential density than what is currently permitted in the existing commercial zoning districts.
Madam Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
just for a point of correction, I think that's District 5, not 3. Nighthawk is in District 5. Councilmanic 5, sorry, there's lots of numbers.
Thank you for the point of correction. I'm sorry my notes were incorrect.
That's fine, thank you.
The next one up for discussion, this is CZR5GAM007, is located at 740 Maryland 3 South Lane and No Number Ballpark Road, and is located with Council District 3. The current use is the API Sports Facility. The property owner requested the property be rezoned to entirely C4 to expand the property's permitted uses. OPZ, SAC, and the PAB were all also recommending C4 zoning. This change in zoning would be consistent with the adopted commercial plan land use and would provide the opportunity to expand business operations. Correction also in District 5. This next one, this is CZR5GAM0010 and is located at 725 Maryland 3 North Lane and is within Council District 6. The property is currently improved with a single-family dwelling and is Zone C2. The property owner requested R1 or RLT zoning to reflect the existing residential use. OPZ is recommending the property retain the adopted C2 zoning to be consistent with the uses along the Maryland 3 corridor and the adopted commercial plan land use. The SAC and PAB are recommended R1 zoning, so the zoning is reflective of the existing residential use on the property. This next one is CZR5GAM0013 and is located at No Number Crane Highway, tax map 37, parcel 6, and is within Council District 6. The property is currently unimproved and is Zone C2. The property owner has requested C4 zoning to develop a commercial use. OPZ and SAC are recommending C2 zoning to limit more intense commercial uses along MD3. The PAB had recommended C4 zoning to provide the property owner the opportunity to develop a commercial use. This next one is CZR5GAM0019 and is located at 1318 Defense Highway and is within Council District 8. Correction, Council District 7. The
It's like, that's a new one.
On fire this morning. The property is currently improved with a commercial motorcycle business in the Zone C1. The property owner requested C4 zoning to expand the business operations. OPZ is recommending the parcel retain the adopted C1 zoning to limit intensification of commercial uses in Staples Corner. The SAC and PAB are recommending C4 zoning to allow the opportunity for the business to expand their operations. This next one is CZR5GAM0109 and is located at 2419 Blooming Way and is located in Council District 4. The property is currently zoned RA and is improved with a single-family dwelling. The property owner had requested R10 zoning but has since withdrawn their application. Public feedback noted that the adopted zoning should be maintained or match the existing community character. OPZ and PAB are recommending a low-density residential plan land use and a R1 zoning to prevent a residential density that would match the scale and intensity of the surrounding residential neighborhood. The SAC had recommended R5 zoning to match the zoning of the surrounding residential neighborhood. So there's slight difference. While R1 would permit scale intensity, R5 would match the existing surrounding zoning. This next one is CZ R5 GAM 0501 and is located at no number Brandy Farm Lane, tax map 37, parcel 71, and is within Council District 6. The property is located near the intersection of Maryland 3 North Lane and St. Stephen's Church Road. The property is currently unimproved and is zoned RLD. The property owner had requested the property be rezoned R10 to allow for more dense residential development. OPZ, SAC, and the PAB recommend the adopted RLD zoning be retained to limit increasing residential density in an area not targeted for significant growth. This next one is CZR5GAM 0503 and is located at 876 Maple Road and is within Council District 3. The property is currently improved with a single-family dwelling and is split zone C1 and RLD. The property owner had requested the property be rezoned to entirely MXDN to allow for a mix of residential and commercial uses. OPZ, SAC, and the PAB are recommending the property be rezoned to entirely RLD for zoning to be consistent with the adopted rural plan land use to match the existing residential uses in the area. This next area is located at Evergreen Road. This is directly north of the Wall Chapel Shopping Center and is within Council District 4. The parcels outlined in blue reflect zoning requests where property owners had requested a residential upzoning. The parcels outlined in red reflect a zoning request where the property owner requested RA zoning to allow for resource extraction as a permitted use. Properties along Evergreen Road are improved with single-family dwellings and are zoned RLD. OPZ and the SAC recommended RLD zoning for parcels along Evergreen Road to preserve the agricultural and rural character of this community. The PAB recommended RA zoning to promote the use of mineral resources for economic use. Moving on to the Odenton Towns, the Odenton community. This community contains the Odenton Town Center, the Seven Oaks residential community, and other residential communities south of Odenton Road. There were no mapping recommendations we'd be presenting to the County Council today. This is the Piney Orchard community. It contains the Piney Orchard Plan Unit Development, Gort Park, and the south side of Evergreen Road. Similar to the Odenton community, there are no mapping recommendations OPZ will be reviewing with the County Council today. This is the Two River community. It contains the Two Rivers Plan Unit Development and the Forks of the Patuxent community. The first application we're going to present is CZ R5TRS0005. This is located within Two Rivers Plan Unit Development and also known as Two Rivers Parcel O. The parcel is within Council District 4 and is currently undeveloped. The parcel owner initially requested R2 or R5 zoning, but ultimately requested the adopted R2 and OS zoning be retained. The PAB and SAC recommended the adopted R2 and OS zoning also be maintained. Consistent with other plan unit developments, OPZ had recommended no changes in zoning. After review with the County Executive's Office, the recommended zoning for the parcel was changed to open space to reflect the private agreement limiting the parcel to either a golf course use or an agricultural environmental park use. This one's located directly adjacent to Parcel O. This is CZ R5TRS0008. Is located at no number Meyer Station Road, tax map 42, Parcel 10, and is also located in District 4. The property is bisected by Meyer Station Road and is split zone R2, RA, and OS. The area zoned R2 contains a single-family dwelling. The area zoned RA and OS is unimproved. The property owner requested the area currently zoned RA be rezoned to R1 to allow for development of a more intensive residential use. OPZ, SAC, and PAB are all recommending that the adopted R2, RA, and OS zoning be retained to limit residential development and impacts within the Two Rivers community. This would be the final community. This is Woodwardville. This contains the Woodwardville Historic District and is generally bisected by the Patuxent Road. This is CZ R5WWV0004 and is located at 2805 Fifth Avenue and no number Bragger Station Road and is located within Council District 4. The property is located west of the Amtrak train right-of-way. The property is currently approved with an access road and is split zoned RA and OS. The property owner requested that the property be rezoned to entirely RLD to allow for development of more intensive residential uses. OPZ and PAB recommended that the property be rezoned to entirely RA to preserve the rural and agricultural character found within the Woodwardville community. The SAC did not come to a consensus on a recommendation but did not support the owner's request for residential upzoning on the property. That concludes the presentation on the Region 5 plan and comprehensive zoning mapping. All information is currently published online for members of the public to review and access at aacounty.org/Region 5. Additionally, a web tutorial is available to instruct the public on how to use the online web mapping tool, which displays the mapping recommendations within Bill 1826. Thank you.
Are there any questions or comments? I know that I have a meeting with y'all coming up on all the ones I'm going to go in more detail and the things in my area, and I'm sure the others do as well. I think we have 5 council districts that are included in this region, so it's a busy one, many moving parts. So we look forward to seeing more of you for the next coming months as we get this finished, but then we can all celebrate that it will all be finished. So thank you very much. Next is Bill number 1926. This is credit for daycare or childcare property improvements. Ms. Rodbian.
Make this really, really quick. It's super simple. If you're operating a childcare facility, you can get, this would allow you to get a tax credit for improvements that you make to the property. I just this morning saw some friendly amendments from the administration that will kind of make sure that there are appropriate parameters on those. So I'm not ready to speak to them, but I think that I think they're good. I think my initial glances, they're good to go. And let's see, yeah, really straightforward. The fiscal note has it at a cost that seems what was like in the mid 100s, like 120 to, oh, he can get
Never find that button. Brian Shank, Office of Finance. It's about $200,000 depending on how you do the math. The hard part is we had to model this very similar to how we do the solar energy tax credit because the credit's only on the improvement and we have an assessment it's improvement in land. So we looked at what the valuation was correspondingly for improvements on the property and just kind of did the math from there, looking at briefly how many properties may be affected. We just did some kind of preliminary figures.
And even if it's a structure, like, you know, the improvement would ordinarily constitute an entire structure, but if you're only calculating the part that is the daycare, say, I don't know, you have like a 2-story building, and I'm just imagining this is like probably would be like a multi, what do you call it? I'm sorry, I can't remember when you have mixed zoning, sorry, not multiple zoning, mixed use zoning, where you might have like a residence on the top floor and a daycare on the bottom floor. Only the part that would be the bottom floor would get the property tax credit. So even though it looks like it could be pretty substantial with a cap of $4,000 per property, it's actually likely to be a lot less than that, and will, you know, provide, as we all know, we're in desperate need of these. Childcare businesses operate on a super, super low margin. People do it because they love kids and they want to take care of kids. Folks that work in childcare, like I was just looking to see the average compensation for a childcare aide is somewhere between $15 and $19 an hour. Our county Rec and Parks pays $15.75 to $20.70 per hour. So it's just a really, it's not like, no one's making millions out of these. We need them, and this is just to help them, proliferate and keep going in our county.
Okay. There any questions about that? All right, that does it. Thank you. All right. Next is Resolution 526 regarding recycling and reuse of beverage containers. Ms. Rabia?
And if it's okay with you, I'd like to save discussion for this since we're missing a number of our members. If it's okay with all of you guys, we can discuss on Monday night.
Okay.
Instead of having to repeat it to y'all and then them, and then we can be done.
And then we have one additional thing that is not on the agenda. We have the Maryland Citizens Healthy Initiative is here to present to us today, and that kind of slipped through and didn't get on the agenda. So I believe it's Mr. DeMarco. Mr. DeMarco is going to come up and share with us about the Maryland Citizens Health Initiative. Thank you for waiting through all. You got to listen to a lot today.
Learned a lot. May I hand something out? Is that okay?
Give it to our secretary, please.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the time. I'm Vinny DeMarco, President of Maryland Healthcare for All Coalition, Maryland Citizen Health Initiative. With me is Dr. Andrew York, who's the Executive Director of the Maryland's Prescription Drug Affordability Board. We just wanted to update you all on the progress Maryland is making make high-cost drugs more affordable. As you know, very, very important issue. And we began this fight in 2019 when we were lead advocates to create Maryland's first, the nation's first prescription drug affordability board. And County Executive Stuart Pittman was one of our strongest supporters, along with local leaders all across the state, and your council was supportive. And it was not easy to get enacted, but it was necessary because, as you know, drugs don't work if people can't afford them. Many, many people, including many of your constituents, just can't afford the drugs they desperately need. Our insurance premiums are so much higher because of the high cost of drugs, and local jurisdictions are being gouged, frankly. And County Executive Pittman says that in Anne Arundel County, you all spend more on the cost of prescription drugs for employees than on libraries. It really is absolutely ridiculous. But we got this bill enacted in 2019, and law authorized the board to make high-cost drugs more affordable for state and local governments. And then in 2025, under the leadership of Governor Westmore, by legislation put in by Anne Arundel County's Dawn Guile and Delegate Bonnie Collison of Montgomery County, to authorize the board to help everyone 1 year after they set upper payment limits for state and local governments. And this has been a very, very important action. And 3 other states, Colorado, Minnesota, and Washington, have created similar boards. And Colorado was the first state to actually implement this process. And on October 3rd, they issued an upper payment limit for the drug Enbrel. Starting January 1, 2027, Coloradans will spend $32 million less per year on that drug. And I know our Prescription Drug Affordability Board is poised to act on several drugs for state and local governments, saving hundreds of thousands and millions of dollars at the local level. And then 1 year from that, 1 year from when they do that, they'll be able to help all Marylanders for their prescription drugs. So starting January 12th of this year, we began basically a tour of the state, going to local jurisdictions everywhere. We've been to Baltimore City, Garrett County, and then yesterday, Rockville City Council, Howard County, and now we're here, and we're going to go elsewhere. And basically, we want you to know that this board is there and that it's working, and soon you'll be seeing the benefits of it. And Andy's going to talk a little bit about how the board can help your constituents right now. But in addition, once the board sets the upper payment limits for everybody, we'd love to work with you on a public forum to really get the message out to what the board's doing and to let people tell us what are the high-cost drugs that are hurting them, so the board can help make those costs more affordable. It's a very exciting program, and we're proud that Maryland's the first state to do it. And I'm going to turn it over to Dr. York to tell you about the board's actions right now.
Great. Thank you for your time. Andrew York of the Maryland Prescription Drug Affordability Board. Just echoing what Mr. DeMarco said, we are a state agency with the purpose of making prescription drugs more affordable for Marylanders. Right now, we are finishing up the process on 6 drugs, and we can set upper payment limits for state and local government. We're currently working with your HR department on that. And the goal is to basically help save taxpayer dollars for state local government and help patients. We're happy to give details on what those drugs are, but then moving forward, we want to have a direct line with your county, so you can let us know about certain drugs that are causing budgetary issues or access issues for your employees and residents. Additionally, we also want to be a resource for any residents that come to you that say they can't afford their drugs. If you're receiving this from your constituents or residents, you can refer them to us, and we can plug them into our services and help them navigate this extremely complex system to get them access to their drugs. We look forward to working with you.
When you say government entities, does that include our school systems?
Yes.
Great.
Yeah.
Yes, I remember from my days on the school board that one patient with a really high prescription drug claim can throw off the whole system because of the high cost of certain drugs.
Yeah, and Howard County Schools just announced that they have to stop paying for Ozempic for weight loss because it was so expensive. And Ozempic is one of the drugs the board is looking at right now.
What I would be interested. What are the 6 drugs you're looking at?
Farxiga and Jardiance are two diabetes drugs. Ozempic and Trulicity are also diabetes drugs. Those are two different classes of drugs. I'm sure you've heard of Ozempic. And then we're also looking at two autoimmune drugs, Skyrizi and Dupixent. But it's going to be an annual cycle, so if there are drugs that are kind of causing issues for the school systems, we want you guys to let us know that so we can try to prioritize those drugs.
That's great. Ms. Ravian.
Thank you. So I'm really glad that this effort, that you guys are undertaking this effort. I'm curious, your flyer here says healthcare for all. And so I'm hoping that means when I think of healthcare for all, I think of a single payer system. Are we working towards a single payer system?
Well, our philosophy is to do everything we can to get everybody covered. And we have worked hard in Maryland to go from 13% uninsured to 6%. We want to go to 0%. So prescription drug affordability is one part of it, but we're also doing much else. We frankly don't believe a single payer system can work at the state level. So we're focusing on building on the Affordable Care Act and other policies we want to achieve the goal of 0% uninsured. And we've done a lot in Maryland. And one of the key pieces of that is making high cost drugs more affordable.
I mean, I definitely agree that that's a key piece, but I think until we're still going to all be looking at absurdly high costs, even if we get them lower absurdly high costs, until we get single payer. And am I correct that I didn't realize you guys were on the agenda today? I would have done a little bit of homework, but there are states that have single payer systems. Didn't Vermont have a single payer system?
They tried and they didn't do it.
Okay. So I hope that you are also advocating at the national level, because this is good, but it's still not going to get us there. This is not going to get us to the affordability that we need out of healthcare. We need to, talking about having everyone covered still means that we have insurance companies as the middleman that are raking in enormous profits. So I hope that is ultimately the goal for, healthcare for all, because we're 100%. I mean, we're always going to have people that are, don't have employer-based health care and have to pay things out of pocket. They don't have retirement health. And so until we get to healthcare for all, I don't see how you get to 100%. I really don't even see how it's possible because, so I hope you're working towards that.
All right. Well, thank you all so much for coming. Thank you for waiting through. You
Sure.
came on a full day to have, but we appreciate it, and this is really valuable. And anything we can do to save on healthcare costs is greatly appreciated. So we appreciate your work. Thank you.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We'll be in touch as we go forward.
Okay. Is there any other business any council member would like to bring before the county council at this time? Okay. May I have a motion to adjourn? Second. All in favor? Motion carries. The county council is adjourned until Monday, March 16th, 2026 at 7 p.m. in our next legislative session in our chambers. There we go.